What is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream video about old people. It's just about old people, people in old folks' homes. Probably, if you're watching this, no, it's about old people. Cyberpunk, the Neuromancer movie. Mine, let me put my Cyberpunk glasses on. Mind prisons, deteriorating body prisons. Elderly millennials yelling at cloud computing, and why old cyber stuff was better than this sellout whippersnapper neon John Wick stuff. Wait, let me say that again. Well, this damn John Wick. Back in my day, we had to walk uphill both ways in the snow just to get to our cyber deck on our Oh No Sendai Cyberspace 7. Just to download 64 bytes of ROM to my hard drive and then upload the downlink and bypass the compressor just to watch a 2-bit pixelated Pong sprite bounce off another Pong sprite. That was Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was Pong in 1978. Anyway. Anyway, so part of this is I'm obviously being facetious. It's this is not. I'm not trying to. Stop the youngsters generation gapping us. That's a Neuromancer reference. Speaking of, I have all the Neuromancer references. Just to be clear, I do not try me. I have so many lines from the book memorized, but it's kind of embarrassing actually. But So, long story short, or I should say not really long story short, but in summary, the synopsis is the Neuromancer movie has been greenlit yet again for the first time. The Neuromancer movie is officially in production or starting to move in the direction of what might amount to a production. For like the 8th time. Previously, Vincenzo Natali was set to direct it in the 2010s. Director of Splice, The Peripheral, etc. Before that, we had Rooster. Can you give it? I have a cyber Rooster out there. He's getting on my old Cyberpunk. You know, my old brain can't handle the Rooster. You stop being able to focus, and you start dawdling off, much like Joseph Biden. In the middle of your sentences when you hear random avians crowing. Anyways, so Cyberpunk, one of the original Cyberpunk tomes, Neuromancer. It's kind of like one of the it won the Triple Crown of Science Fiction, the Philip K. Dick, the Nebula, and the Pulitzer Prize. No, I forgot the third one, but. Neuromancer is a book that I talk about it all the time because obviously I am a cyberpunk game creator. Obviously, games like Neofeud, you probably have heard of it if you are following this stream. And so Neuromancer is like one of the original, if not the original, cyberpunk books, arguably. And so that book has been attempted. It has had attempts to develop it into a movie, as I was kind of talking about 8+ times. I think it's at least 8 times. One of them was Vincenzo Natali. One of them was Joseph Kahn was slated to direct it. Hayden Christensen, if you remember, he played Mr. Young, evil, Japanese samurai cultural appropriation helmet man. I think his name is Darth something. Anyway, Hayden Christensen, from the Star Wars, 1 to 3, he played Anakin Skywalker. So he was set to be Case, the main character in Neuromancer at one point. Now we have this young little youthful smarmy ass, like a little young smart ass. He's going, yeah, I see you old people, you 40-year-old millennials. That's how old millennials are. They're at least 40 years old now. So that's why I said it's for old people, because lots of millennials, the digital, or at least the Nintendo natives. Sometimes they call them the digital natives, but Neofeud is a game that's kind of by the children who are born into the at the age of 4 or 5 were sitting in front of a television, right, button mashing, in the actual cyber worlds of video games, right, and that's a lot of literally Gibson himself, he's a boomer, so he's old people. I'm sorry, Bill. I'm sorry, but you are ancient, man. You are like a dinosaur. You are like literally as old as a saber-toothed tiger. I mean, like, you basically should be mummified. I'm just kidding. William Gibson. Boomers hate to be told that they're old. You know this, right? They know this. But you know, we love our boomers. We love our boomers. They're my parents. My dad is the exact same age as William Gibson. Anyways, but you know, when the Neuromancer was written, like, William Gibson recounted himself, that these were stories that were based on, like, William Gibson himself, I believe, described it as, maybe I might go look for the exact quote if I'm feeling spunky about it. Let me see if I can find that. Through the arcade, you know, he said this many times in the, and I'm probably not gonna be able to find it. Yeah, so he did. Yes, there you go. I got it. So William Gibson and the future of contemporary culture. So Gibson was inspired to make his cyberpunk books, right? These high-tech, low-life. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077 is so ubiquitous now. It's always interesting to come back and revisit Cyberpunk, because it's kind of a genre that is, like, constantly interacting with the rest of culture and human society and civilization, the human system, as it's sometimes called in the Cyberpunk books. So it's kind of this, like, it's like a infinite refracting funhouse mirror, that just kind of the fiction bounces off of the reality. The reality reflects the fiction, and then the fiction is inspired by the reality. It kind of goes back and forth and back and forth. But anyways, because it is near future speculative sort of material, William Gibson, the future of contemporary culture. At least I can find that. Yeah, and so he specifically said that being a screenwriter was never part of my game plan. I would never have gone after it. Neuromancer, it was inspired by watching teenagers play arcade video games, and Gibson had been writing about the realm. And then I zoomed in too far and lost my place. That's an elder gaffe right there. You don't know how to use computers in 2022. Watching teenagers play arcade games, Gibson had been writing about the realm behind computer screens of colors and space, claiming that he assembled the word cyberspace from small and readily available components of language, slick and hollow, awaiting received meaning. Cyberspace had no fixed identity. So he said this, like, many times in various interviews. Obviously, you know, if you follow this channel, also, you probably know that on the Silver Spook YouTube channel, let me see if I can find my own YouTube channel. So on my channel, the #1 video is my interview with William Gibson himself, who wrote Neuromancer, the original Cyberpunk work, upon which Cyberpunk 2077 2020 basically lifted its entire universe, including the location Night City is a place in Neuromancer, and the currency, the post-dollar, post-yen currency of new yen, right? The coin of the realm of Cyberpunk 2020's world is straight lifted from Neuromancer as well, which was written by this guy William Gibson. So, and that's me interviewing him, and you know, so as I often bring up, a lot of my personality, history, and life is wrapped up in Cyberpunk, because like, literally, me and Holly, my partner, who also moderates here and is a partner in the Silver Spook Cooperative, we literally met at the Gibson, a William Gibson meetup in Vancouver, and often would joke, you know, and it just happened that William Gibson was already married, so I had to marry Holly instead. I'm joking, of course. So I had intention you know, we started actually long-term dating for years after that point. But we were long distance dating when that was not really a thing, not very common. Everyone was looking at us weird and side-eyeing, and Holly's parents were kind of flipping out, hoping that I wasn't some creepy stalker. But anyways, so but Gibson, the board itself was a place that united a lot of people, including actually many marriages were made on the board, not just ours. And so it's kind of it's a weird thing to look at, even me personally. Like, I would say the average millennial and Gen Z, is especially the ones that were computer geeks, nerds, like video games, science fiction, all of the above or one of the above. You have some interaction with cyberpunk the genre, and the more time passes, the more interactions people have with it, for a variety of reasons. But like, it's even more integrated into my life, because of things like this. Like, we literally, like a lot of our social group. Like, I haven't been as active with all of the William Gibson board. They're like a fan board that was established on the William Gibson website when he had back in, speaking of old people cyberpunk, back in ye old ancient antediluvian web 1.0 days, we had these things. Kids, gather around the TikToks and let me recount the days of the landline and the 14.4 modem. Let me sing the song of my old people, of the whistle and the hiss and the hum of the dial-up modem. And we had to log in to these things called websites, where you post extended Twitter messages called forum posts. And anyway, so the William Gibson message board, that was that was a social space back in the day. And so I haven't been always as interactive with it over the last few years. But recently got a little bit more active. They're always in the orbit. A lot of the people who support Silver Spoon Games, the Patreon patrons, thanks again to all of our patrons, by the way. Most of them are actually, in fact, not most of them. I said most of the biggest ones, or many of the big ones, not all of them, are people from the William Gibson message board. In fact, including people like Mingzilla and Noirgear, and I'm probably getting all of your names wrong, but we're all old ass people. We're all old ass people, and I'm not saying that to insult people, but it is a thing that's like, cyberpunk is, English major wannabe techno hipsters who are afraid of being seen as not cool and not young and with it, and people with PhDs in like social anthropology and shit like that. That's the old book people cyberpunk, and they're really mad. And this is kind of slightly in-house. I'm thinking in-house of a few people who are really upset about the peripheral, and they're getting really mad about it, that I know personally. And they were screaming for like 6 pages worth of Discord / Slack screen space about how mad they were about how inaccurate this was and how bad that was. So when I said, elderly millennials and elderly Gen Xers yelling at cloud computing, the peripherals CG wasn't up to snuff, and or there was too much CG. There wasn't enough. The London accents weren't accurate enough. This is a disgrace. The plot is full of holes. The plot is like Swiss cheese that's not even from the cheese region of Switzerland. It's not authentic. That Swiss cheese has to come from the Swiss region of Cheeseland. Otherwise, it doesn't count as cheese. And this London in the peripheral, which is another cyberpunk book by William Gibson, made into a Netflix original series. This does not have authentic. This character does not speak with an Essex accent. And Essex, because everyone knows that Essex people come from the S region of the alphabet. SX, South by South. Anyways, I'm gonna stop being silly, but it's like a lot of complaining people, and I was like, what are you so mad about? Anyways, I'm gonna stop. But there's a lot of people that like, I'm always being like half facetious about all this, but there are like 40 years of there have been the alternate title for this video was going to be 40-year-old cyberpunk, which is obviously a play on the 40-year-old virgin, Because some of these people are 40-year-old virgins, right? That are still upset that they haven't had sex. But the reason why you are upset that you haven't had sex yet is the same reason why, people were mad at Matrix Matrix Resurrections. Those kind of people, right? There's too many women in this show. The people who are the reason why you're upset that you haven't had sex and you're a 40-year-old virgin, right? Still, jacking into your neural trodes of your, your Call of Duty Modern Warfare, while also, getting mad at women in the Reddits, and there's too much Megan Thee Stallion and She-Hulk, and there's too, those kind of people. Is the reason why you're a 40-year-old virgin mad that the Matrix Resurrections has too many trans people and women in it is the same reason, why you are not having sex. Anyways, but I make that point in some of the previous YouTube videos about She-Hulk and other things, but then the other people that they're very mad that that the Cyberpunk doesn't look exactly the way that they want it to, right? There's certainly that branch, of people that this doesn't look exactly like what it looked like in my head when I read the book, but it's kind of that's what books are, though, right? Books are scripts. They're like little screenplays, and then everyone, right, by mass decoding little scribblings of graphite on flattened pieces of dead tree, also known as books. You might have heard of these things, kids. Back in the day, we had to open these giant weird, they're weird thick iPads. They were thick Samsung Galaxy S12s, and they had pieces, but they were made of dead trees, flattened and stacked 200 deep, and they're called paper, and they were called books. I don't know if you heard of those books. And so kids, and so some of the old people that are yelling at you now, and they're yelling at Mr. I was in a shitty Fantastic Four movie. I mean, I'm sorry, that movie sucked. They're yelling at you because they're upset that you don't read these old things that they spent the last 30 years of their life getting good at reading, and all you do is, play Call of Duty and dance on TikTok, and then that's why they're yelling at you, because they don't like you having fun. They're just mad that their bodies are old, decrepit. They have to take about 5 gallons of ibuprofen, a little bit of opioids, and wash it down with some Tiger Balm just to function, because their body, they have about the dried out cartilage in their elbow, knee, and back joints for these old Cyberpunk fans is about the thinness of a sheet of their antediluvian archaic book paper, and they're very upset, and by they I mean me. Although I'm not upset, I don't give a shit, but some of us older people are upset. But anyways, no, I mean, to be honest, some days I feel I just kind of get frustrated at some of the directions of Cyberpunk, and sometimes I feel a little bit more upset than others, but that's not really an appropriate thing to be upset about. There's other actual appropriate things to be upset about, like ongoing genocide, mass warfare, and the destruction of our entire island, and the stuff I'm going to go into later. Global capitalist, colonialist existence, that kind of stuff. Just getting upset that Case doesn't look. People are really upset right now that Case, the main character of Neuromancer, is being cast with this dude in the bottom right. I don't even know his name. That's how old I am. And to me, I'm I don't. To be 100, it's Case. I mean, this is in-house for Cyberpunk nerds, but Case himself was basically he was a 1.5 dimensional, drug-addled kind of automaton. He wasn't really a character. Case was just Case was I wouldn't say he's not even really a Gary Stu. Case was just Case was somebody wandering through bars and streets in imaginary Japan, um, like just like randomly thinking thoughts that seemed interesting because Gibson wanted to put them out there, and he doesn't really, he likes, he is addicted to his internet, also known as cyberspace at the time. He's really wants his cyberspace, and he is very paranoid, and he like is like running around throwing getting some kind of retractable electrified cobra snake. I could never quite fully visualize that particular weapon that he uses, and he's trying to survive, but he has outside of just like trying to survive, moping around and having weird thoughts about social Darwinism and technological 20th century or 21st century Western culture. I don't really know. He doesn't really have much of a character, really, when you think about it, right? Compared to even compared to Gibson's later books. Even Gibson has said Neuromancer was a very much a young man's novel, and it's embarrassing because I wasn't really that young of a man when I wrote it. I was 30 something, but it was like a 18-year-old's novel. He said that himself. That wasn't me. Actually, Bruce Sterling got upset. I remember Bruce Sterling is another William Gibson era cyberpunk author, compiler. They sometimes called him the chairman of cyberpunk, Bruce Sterling, and he compiled Mirror Shades, a cyberpunk anthology. And he's currently a professor of design or something somewhere in the Western world. I think it's in Italy. But anyways, and so he was upset about that. It was actually in Altomaro's parties. Was it Altomaro's parties? No maps for these territories, which is a video documentary about an hour and a half, where a documentarian, director, and friend of William Gibson travel across the United States in a car, and Gibson just like goes off at length about all kinds of topics. It's a half documentary, half road trip movie. Anyways, Gibson was like, I didn't really know what I was doing. Not like didn't know what I was doing, but he kind of like, at least the guy's honest. He's like, I didn't have the strongest character in that book. And I'm not saying that the book sucks. I'm just saying that Neuromancer was his first full length novel. He had written like short stories and he had written other things. And, he doesn't Gibson's fiction. It's more like Gibson's fiction is more like kind of like, it's like a book of poetry. It's a book of poetry and pseudo essays, kind of just wrapped around, it's kind of just like wrapped around the armature of a caper Tom Clancy-esque spy thriller, and the characters inside, and to be real, like the spy thriller characters are pretty one-dimensional, really. A lot of the time. That's why a lot of straight cis white dudes from the Western world like to read that shit, because it's full of all this techno jargon and James Bond bullshit, right? And the nuclear missiles and the calibers and bullet sizes and hollow pointness of various concealed firearms as people are gallivanting into Beijing and then into Moscow, and then having a sexy little trip into some Italian beach port city, and but these are not very well fleshed out characters. It's kind of like Western media. It's not very well fleshed out, especially nowadays. But anyways, the Neuromancer, the movie, the Neuromancer book is very much like a book that is it's more about the world. It's doing more than a Tom Clancy book, because it's kind of like speaking against the kind of Reaganomics era average, let's say like the average Western mainstream political discourse. And in fact, that's what makes it more punk. When Cyberpunk is really doing the punk, that's when it's doing what I like about it. It's when it's speaking back to what is the mainstream Western, often conservative, though not always, narrative, right? Inside of what appears to be, it is kind of like subversive, like like the sugar coating on the medicine, right? It's disguising itself like the Quang MK5 virus at the end of Neuromancer, right? The disguise it's a viral program that disguises itself as the software architecture that it is attempting to subvert. Where previous programs, were not that good. So it's very much like the Anglo-Saxon form of colonizing, really, when you think about it, which is disguises itself, or the Democrat form of control of mass societal structures, which is to pretend like it's your friend and it's one of you, right? So it's usually a black, a brown, or Asian person running on the Democratic ticket. So they disguise themselves as one as you, and it's more effective at mass controlling the populations. And so similarly, like, but it's also like, and that's where Cyberpunk kind of gets interesting. We just watched The Matrix Resurrections last night, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like if you really want to move mass numbers of people, sometimes it can be more effective to mask. That's kind of what I'm doing with these streams, obviously. You want to mask what exactly it is that you actually mean and want as a result, right, from the people that are consuming it, so that the defense mechanisms, right, that push out, right, so that push out what you are. If you were to come on and just say like, well, we actually want communism. What? Communism? That's the enemy. That's the Soviet Union. That's authoritarian, right? And if you just tell the average American person, right, especially the older ones, he's like, well, I just want to bring communism to America, and you should all be communists with me. And then, they might kill you in a lot of parts of the world, especially everywhere that places like the U.S. is pushing proxy war. They literally kill you. They literally ban all the parties. And not to say that like it's a good strategy. It's not always a good strategy to mass things, but in some circumstances, like like for example, if you don't want to get your YouTube channel nuked, like Abby Martin, like Lee Camp, like Scott Ritter's Twitter, right? Like thousands of journalists and actual people that are, they're saying important things and communicating and trying to move people in a good direction, whether that's anti-war, that's anti, inequality, trying to root out corruption and, systemic structures of government, business, whatever. That's all good stuff. But, if you come too directly at the entity, and particularly when you're using the entity, right? If you're against capitalism, but using a capitalist entity's mega corporation, if you're anti-mega corporation, but you're using a mega corporation's infrastructure to communicate your message, right? Because that's where we are. That's where you're on. That's what you're listening to me and seeing me through your eye holes and ear holes from, right? We're not in we're not in some other entity that exists in the world that is not run by mega corporations. We're inside the belly of the beast. And so if you say, hey, I hate this giant megaphone that I'm shouting through at the megaphone owner, you might not have a channel anymore, right? And so that's why I still have a channel and other people don't. But anyway, and so actually that's actually an example of where Cyberpunk can function in that form. Now, of course, if you mask too well what you're trying to say or what your intentions are, right? Or if your Quang MK5 virus like doesn't actually activate, it doesn't actually end up doing anything, and people don't actually start moving, they just like consume your entertaining cyber product. And it's like, wow, cool neons, man. It's like it's that Cyberpunk meme, right? The Cyberpunk meme with the cool future. Because the opposite can happen, right? Which is that if you right. So it's like, wow, Cyberpunk. Oh, god damn it, this is like not. Can I get the full image? There we go. It's like people sometimes come to Cyberpunk as a genre and they see, wow, cool, awesome, stylish, rave club trench coat. Wow, man, nice triangular, slick sunglasses at night. Wow, that's like really edgy of you to wear your sunglasses at night. Oh wow, look at that. He's got like electronic trodes all over his brain. He's got like robot arm, man. Holy crap, I'm gonna buy a lot of this game or this show. I'm gonna watch a lot of this Netflix original series because I like stuff that looks cool, and I'm a 13-year-old boy. Anyways, giant gun, and it's like, what we're trying to talk about is class disparity is bad. Unrestrained capitalism leads to destruction. We should improve society somewhat. We should must adjust to the rapidly changing future, sustain our lifestyles and our species. Should probably stop our hedonistic expansion before it destroys the planet. Transhumanism is the next step in evolution, but must be approached cautiously. Anyways, and so it's like, not to say that everybody is trying to say all those things. Some people don't want to say. Some people are like, I don't know about that transhumanism stuff. Some people are like, well, maybe we need class disparity. It's like, anyways, but the point is that, like, a lot of people look at Cyberpunk, like Cyberpunk 2077. A lot of people make a lot of Cyberpunk looking stuff, right? Like the color schemes of Cyberpunk have kind of blended with generic action movie color schemes. Like there's like Hotline Miami came out, and then there was like around, what was that time? There's all of these like red, blue, green sort of John Wick, right? When I was kind of dunking on, speaking of Cyberpunk, you can't talk about Cyberpunk without bringing up Keanu Reeves, obviously, the mega star from The Matrix, that he went on to have a massive career and became the darling of Hollywood circa 2018-19 as the only uncanceled 90s star that didn't commit terrible sexual abuse, harassment, gaslighting, and or casting couch surfing of women's bodies. So Keanu Reeves, for a lot of reasons, there's multiple reasons why, but he had a long Hollywood action movie career, and then he was in Cyberpunk 2077, and even the Cyberpunk 2077 creators were like, we just wanted to hang out with Keanu Reeves, and so and there's lots of spin-off and knockoff Cyberpunk this, Cyberpunk that, and it's unclear like how much of all of that Cyberpunk not so much the books, but including some of the books and graphic novels and tabletop RPGs and Cyberpunk movies and Cyberpunk games or Cyberpunk-ish things, how much of that is, actually saying anything interesting is not clear. To me, it's not clear. Maybe I'm just old, and it's one of those things where, when you experience. You can only watch Star Wars when you're age 6 for the first time. And then when you watch it again, you can kind of remember what it was like to be 6 when you're 18 years old watching Jar Jar Binks and, Padme, and ducking, and, you can watch, laser sword fights and, big spectacular, X-Wings firing lasers, into and ducking and banking whole clouds of TIE fighters in 2002, but it's not the same as when you watch it the first time. And so part of it is being old, you can only really watch, you can read about the Cyberpunk and you visualize in your head who Neuromancer was, right? You're seeing the ducking and banking of Quang MK5 viruses in the Tessier Ashpool mega servers, visualize. It was very Star Warsy. I think even Gibson even literally said, I needed a space in which to have laser sword fights and epic science fictional star battles, but I didn't want to replicate Star Wars, so I made up cyberspace was kind of like the Star Wars set for Gibson's work, because Neuromancer came out shortly after the first Star Wars. And the Empire Strikes Back, I think, was right around the same time. In fact, 86. I was 3 when I saw Return of the Jedi. So it was like right in that window. Anyways, so it was like but anyways, my point there was like you can only really be 5 once, and then you look back from the future, from the future you, right, is always kind of reliving what the past you's version of whatever fiction or media you're currently consuming, and then you're constantly looking at that. So old you is it's like the imposter syndrome, where where parts of your temporal lobe and your imposter syndrome is this illness where your facial recognition neural circuitry, speaking of neuromancers, is disconnected for some reason from the parts of your brain that generate feelings for the faces of your relatives, that connect the face of your mother to the feelings and the person that is your mother, right? And so when that happens, you think that your mother is an imposter. People become you are super paranoid because you see your mother's face, but then you're not actually you're not getting the oxytocin and the serotonin rush, because for some reason somebody went with pliers and snapped all of the internal brain wires, putting your neurons together through your synapses. No, but it's an illness that happens. And so like when you get old, you're watching stuff that's supposed to make you, sometimes you're watching something like a Cyberpunk movie, or you're reading a Cyberpunk book, or you're watching Cyberpunk 2077 play footage, and now you're 50 years old, right? You're 40, 50 years old. And you're like, you don't feel the way that you felt when you first watched Johnny Mnemonic or played that, watch The Matrix, right? You're watching Matrix Resurrections 20 years later, and you don't feel like an 18-year-old. You don't feel the rush of your mind being blown when you were 18 years old. But it's not because the movie has gotten worse. It's because you have been disconnected from, you are not 18 years old anymore. You're not an edgy kid, upset that he can't get a date, right? Just reading a bunch of Kierkegaard and Kant and hanging out in the club that Lily and Lana Wachowski hung out in, along with all the people who dress like Blade. And you're not just playing Counter-Strike and being lost in the middle of post 9/11 America, right? And then the Matrix is there to kind of like, make you think about what is free will, and maybe my entire life living in these concrete glass and polarized glass and steel girded boxes are really like systems of control called giant skyscrapers filled with officers, and maybe offices, and I'm just a Thomas Anderson sitting in there, grinding away on my TPS reports and doing computer programming for Microsoft and the military industrial complex, programming drone strikes, and maybe and so the Matrix is a movie that's like, oh my god, and like maybe there's something outside of just this Western capitalist world, or maybe you don't get that. Maybe whatever you got from the Matrix, you're not a 20-year-old programmer anymore. Your body doesn't even function properly. Maybe it didn't function properly then, but it certainly doesn't now. Without as I said, 5 gallons of Oxycontin or ibuprofen, a cane, an hour and a half of tendon stretching exercises, and then by that time you're so grumpy, right? You're so grumpy that your body doesn't function. I speak from experience. That all you can do is get on the internet and just yell at how stupid all the children are. Anyway, I'm not saying that's everybody's experience, but my point is that so sometimes people come back to things like the Neuromancer movie. I think there's a lot of people that a lot of the upset about the Neuromancer movie is, people that are, they're not seeing the movie they saw in their head when they were, 20 years old in 1984, or 15 years old in 1995, or whenever they first experienced it. Neuromancer. Like I think I first read Neuromancer when I was in I want to say I was like early in college. Interestingly, my pipeline, I actually played some of the game that kind of got me down the Cyberpunk rabbit hole, to cite the Matrix again, was Deus Ex, because I was a big gamer. I have a computer science degree, so I'm definitely like a Thomas A. Anderson sort of person. I had a computer science degree, but I was like, what am I doing here? And there's a whole nother level, because I'm a native Hawaiian in a U.S. occupied country, so that's another layer of but certainly like having like being raised in American Western capitalist culture, right, in Honolulu, Hawaii, right? My family is, as I've brought up, they are like solidly, they're in denial of their Hawaiianness, or they are not even in denial, not consciously. They are imprisoned. And I was talking about mind prisons. They are imprisoned by the neural matrix, the mental matrix of the U.S. education, media, informational system, and generally U.S. occupation as a whole. And so then for me, the matrix has a whole other meaning, right? And cyberpunk itself has a whole other meaning, which is like, the Hawaiians are encased in those, like those matrix pod farms. Native Hawaiians and people of Hawaii are encased in, giant, human farms where the people are being used for electricity of some external force. But for Hawaii, there's another level where the Hawaiians are being used and they're being brainwashed and used as cannon fodder. Literally, Hawaiians are overrepresented U.S. military, used as tools of a massive oppressive machine. Now, they're not 8-armed, tentacled beasts with 25 eyes, right? The squiddies that are seeking to kill and destroy and enslave all of humanity. It's just the West. Which they're basically doing the same thing. And so we're all the statistics I go over. So that's a whole nother, the colonizer colonized is one level of control that is that the Matrix was echoing in a way that I didn't really recognize exactly how it was echoing that until like way later. But like the Matrix movie and then Deus Ex, and then I got into, actually before Deus Ex, I was playing this massively online multiplayer RPG game that was all in text. But anyways, it was it was literally like a pipeline out of mass disinformation, and that was the pipeline of the mass disinformation and mass media and mass cultural control of the Western capitalist, U.S. led hegemony in it was like I would say 2000, and so that. So watching The Matrix in 2000, that experience cannot be recreated for me. That's the experience. And now I'm the person that has since gone on to do the things that I've done since that point in time. It's, it's, I don't know. So where was I going? I can't remember where I was going with that. Hey, what's up, Big Teal and Emma? So I'm just reading one of our friends' chats here. I don't read a lot of chat, but when I do, it's one of our it's one of our good friends. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, we like the father-son aspect. So I started talking about mind prison, so maybe I could go more into that. Let me just finish up the little bit I was talking about the Neuromancer movie, though. I kind of jump forward on that. So, in case you missed it, the big news is the Neuromancer movie, or sorry, it's a show. It might have multiple seasons. Is being cast right now. Neuromancer. Miles Teller eyed for Neuromancer series. Scott B. Smith on adapting a novel to TV. Will there be a season 2 of The Peripheral? So the other one, because The Peripheral just finished up. I've been talking a lot about The Peripheral, so try not to talk too much about that because I just covered that recently. But Peripheral, obviously. Oh wait, this is a Peripheral. Neuromancer. The Peripheral is another book by William Gibson, right? Yeah. So the new series is coming to Apple TV. Okay, that's not the. Yeah, here. Miles Teller eyed for new Apple series, Neuromancer. Slowly becoming one of the most interesting streamer services on the market. This is just about Apple TV. Disney Plus focuses on Marvel Studios and Star Wars content, but it's also looking to bring back old property with its Escape to Witch Mountain series. This is one of the original Neuromancer covers. I think the video game, there's a Neuromancer game It came out in the 1990s, and that was the cover of the game, Neuromancer. We at the Illuminati can exclusively reveal that Apple TV is looking to adapt the acclaimed book trilogy Neuromancer as a long-form TV series. The book is considered one of the earliest and best-known works in the cyberpunk genre. Set in a futuristic Japan, the show will follow the hacker case who, after breaking out of prison, agrees to do one last job that brings him in contact with a forceful AI, artificial intelligence. Teller is best known for his box office smash hits, starred in acclaimed films like Whiplash and War Dogs. Whiplash is the movie about the toxic jazz drumming class, where the kid is, smashing his drumsticks so hard on the drum that he ends up like breaking his fingers bones off, and the J. Jonah Jameson takes the finger bones and sticks them in his eye holes. No, that might be a little more gruesome. Maybe I'm confusing that with Event Horizon, but anyways. Or Sam Neill sticks his own finger in his eye holes. Anyways, as set in the future superhero genre with the 2015 Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four was not the best movie ever made, although it did have Michael B. Jordan in it. So that's just. I don't see how that makes it necessarily better, but he didn't do as bad as this other dude did. Anyways, Neuromancer wants more. Neuromancer additionally currently is trying to cast a female lead, Molly. They're looking for an actress in her 30s or 40s who's physically fit. Anyways, Molly is a mercenary who was recruited by the same person as Case. The character is supposed to resemble Trinity from the Matrix films. So obviously, how can the Matrix? You can't really talk about Cyberpunk without bringing the Matrix. Going to come in there somewhere. It's going to enter into the conversation somewhere. It is intended that Molly will carry over as the lead for a potential season 2 and 3. So that's one of the older covers. Neuromancer is looking to start production in the summer of 2023. What do you think about all this Neuromancer news? Do you want Miles Teller to sign on for the project? Have you read the novel? Are excited about the show? Let's discuss everything in the comments down below, and make sure that this website doesn't die and everyone gets laid off in the middle of winter so they can freeze to death. Anyways. So that's kind of the news. What did I not talk about yet? Because I bounced around to a few of these topics. Why the old cyber stuff was better than the sellout, whippersnapper, neon John Wick. I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek with that sentence. Obviously, I'm not super mad about these things. More kind of just like interested in where these things will go. William Gibson himself was on a Twitter space this past week, Thursday, and it was kind of funny because William Gibson, the author of the OG granddaddy of Cyberpunk, Neuromancer, among other things, which is about, and actually this is a point I want to go into a little bit. I think I talked about it. Maybe I talked about it a bit on Wednesday, but it's worth discussing. William Gibson himself, right, who authored a book whose entire premise is centered around computer technology, right? Man and machine interface, or human and machine interfaces, cyborgs, high tech, low life, giant mega corporations, computer, near future speculative fiction revolving around computer technology, right? Artificial intelligence, right? The main character is a professional hacker, coder, computer whiz, right? William Gibson, for his Twitter space on the peripheral, let's see, Gibson X Wired. Let me see if I can get an image of that. Gibson Twitter Wired peripheral. Gonna work. Okay, yeah. So William Gibson, right, who wrote this book, that's centered around the greatest, latest computer technology, the most cutting edge, and he is super detailed, right? He's super detailed about his descriptions. That's his entire thing, right? He has an Ono Sendai Cyberspace 7, right? Case let me, I can recite half of Neuromancer by heart, but like, in case I screw it up, let me just see how far I can get. The sky above the port was the color of television tuned to a dead channel. It's not like I'm using, in case someone say, as he shouldered his way around the chat, through the crowd around the Chatsubo. The Chatsubo was a bar for professional expatriates. You could spend a week there and never hear 2 words in Japanese. Rats was tending, I can fucking recite the whole book. I mean, that's how many times I've read this book. But and then in the book, right? He goes into, let me see if I can get the exact words. Yeah. So he's like, Rats was tending her. He saw a case, his prosthetic arm was jerking monotonously as he filled a tray of glasses with draft Kirin, which is the Japanese beer. He saw a case and smiled. His teeth was a webwork of East European steel and brown decay. So like all the descriptions are incredibly specific, right? That's really Gibson's. It's poetic. It talks about economics, politics, art, history, culture, everything. It's science fictionally capery novel, but from a less, West Point and DC centered perspective. But it's all like super detailed in the way that sometimes those books can be, but in a less gratingly CIA funded way. So Rat's tending bar, his prosthetic case found a place at the bar between the unlikely tan on one of Lonnie's Zone's horrors and the crisp naval uniform of a tall African whose cheekbones were ridged with precise rows of tribal scars. So he's talking about like history and cultural, cultural clashes and population displacements, and you have like native people like they're just thrown in the middle of a bar in Japan with Americans and Japanese people and Europeans, and so it's which obviously this is all results of imperialism, but Wage was in here early with 2 Joe boys. Rats said, but I was trying to find the one where he talks about his arm. It was an antique arm, a Russian military prosthesis, a 7-function force feedback manipulator cased in grubby pink plastic, right? So he like describes his things like they're like magazine article descriptions, right? These are like Amazon product. Like when you go to buy like your, I need a Dell 486 laptop cover. I mean, that's something you're gonna buy in like 1996. So that might be actually ahistorical, but I need a cover for a iPhone and I need it for this size, blah blah. It's like the product description, like the technical specs, window that you can drop down if you want, but most people don't do that. That's the way that Gibson describes his stuff, right? Which makes it like incredibly, it makes it feel like a really lived in real place, right? But it's not. He just made all this shit up. It's all imaginary. Like he takes little details that he hears when he goes to like a TED Talk conference in San Francisco, or he's in South by Southwest listening to some 3D printing PhD in 3D printing PhD in computer assisted fabrication or something, talking about the details of what kind of ABS plastic is used and new advanced adversarial networks that are applied to speed up the production time. And he just takes the words and he sticks these words that he doesn't know what they mean, and he just sticks those words into a future imagined place, and then throws in culture, and then throws in technology, and throws in random references to Bosch paintings and Shakespeare or whatever else, right? And then what comes out is like this very kind of tasty mishmash of all those things, and it's with layers of English department, his 10 years of being a professional English major grad student at the University of British Columbia, right? And all of that like wasted life hours finally is put to good use in the novel. That's basically what he's an English major, but he takes all the technical terminology, throws it in to make it incredibly believable because of how hyper specific the descriptions are. Future, right? That you feel like you could live there. Like it feels like you can taste and touch and see and hear everything. Like like somebody had to have lived it. It could never be that specific, right? The details are, it's really the devil is in the details, but it's also like the verisimilitude of the universe is in the details. And so it's kind of like, that has to be a real thing. If you're an actual computer programmer that specializes in one of these fields, which I do, I know that he's making a lot of this shit up, right? But even then, you want to believe it, even if you are a technical specialist in the field that he is BSing his way through, because it sounds so cool. If you're an English major, if you are an anthropology, philosophy, culture major, if you work for a DC think tank, which you don't know anything about anything, that's why you work there, because you're a mediocre ass clown, privileged white boy, and descended from a Bush or a Clinton, then, you know, if you're just somebody who is in the soft sciences and you have a degree, now you have to have some kind of degree probably, or you have to have read a shit ton of English language books, because this stuff is not easy, right, to read. It's like it's beyond like an average high school. The average American, 54% of the United States, cannot read at a 7th grade level. So the average American is not capable of reading his books. Neither is that, you know. But anyways, but if you are capable of reading the books, and you are in the soft sciences sort of divisions, you don't even know that everything he's saying is just completely made up, right? You don't even recognize that. And I mean, and you know, I was thinking about this, and it's kind of like, wait, how do you Shanghai 3 megabytes of hot RAM? Why is Mr. Dude asking for a modem? Like, oh no, I have to hack the Pentagon, and I don't have enough megabytes to hack the Pentagon. Somebody give me a modem. Like, somebody says that in this book. It doesn't make any sense, right? He's taking the word modem, RAM, right? Hexadecimal, all these words, and they just sound cool, and then he just throws them in a way that sounds neat, right? And then slightly tries to fact check things. He does it a little bit more with his friend Cory Doctorow in the 2010s, but kind of like, that's not really the point of the book. The books are not necessarily about getting all the technical details right, but the technical details help to make the world feel more real, if that makes any sense. In fact, if you get all the technical details exactly right, reality is far more boring. You know, reality of hacking is fucking boring. Let me tell you that, because I've never done hacking in my entire life, and I wouldn't know. But people tell me that, like, it's incredibly boring. It's actually not that. I mean, computer programming generally, white hat hacking. Nobody does any black, any hat, anything. Nobody does. That's kind of racist, though, when you think about it. But nobody does any illegal activity anywhere near the Silver Spook Cooperative. You know what I'm saying? So that's just that'll be a TOS violation to be talking about that. So but you know, programming is boring, man. Computer programmers are boring people. I'm sorry, man. I'm one of them. I try to be as interesting as possible. It's like looking at 5,000 pages of, you know, opened and closed brackets, semicolons, and if-else statements. It's like worse than math class. It's boring. So then, like, you got to make it interesting and fun. I think Cyberpunk works because very boring people with boring jobs called computer programming and engineering get to feel really cool and fun, and their jobs seem really entertaining and neat and Tom Clancy spy thriller-ish, right? And that's like very alluring and makes you feel like you're a really cool person when you're sitting at your computer fucking at 3 a.m. drinking all the coffee you have and 25 rock stars trying to find your lost semicolon. It's boring. It's fucking, I'm not saying it's entertaining in the way that solving I was going to say quadrilateral, but you know, solving it's computer programming and engineering is fun in the way that solving algebraic equations is fun for weird math nerds. You know what I'm saying? But for the for the vast majority of the population, they're just like, this is you're having the Zach Galifianakis like being surrounded by a cloud of weird Greek symbols moment. They're like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm going to go watch fucking Sex in the City, or maybe it's actually the present. I'm going to go watch White Lotus or something. You know, I'm just going to go play video games or have sex or, you know, masturbate into my anime kitsune waifu body pillow because I'm a weird nerd that hated Matrix Resurrections, and that's the only way I can have sex. But whatever it is I'm going to do, I'm not going to do this math problem, right? So, anyways, So anyway, this is a bunch of text. You're probably like looking at this text. You're like, I don't want to read text. Read text. Why read text when I could listen to an entertaining person with a sexy voice, podcast that shit piped straight into my brainstem through my ear holes and my cilia inside next to my eardrum, right? Why would I read text when I could have some kind of YouTube video with entertaining witty pop cultural references and a bunch of funny jokes, right? Why would I learn shit through text, right? That's why all of your college students that Big Teal got to teach, they're like, doing the YouTubed TikTok Cliff Notes version of your books about, South Central American history. That, anyways, sorry, Big Teal, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but Big Teal is a actual educator that teaches actual education, unlike most of the Western diseducation system. Anyways, Big Teal like wrote code for a bit. Big Teal, you're not boring. I'm just joking. I'm joking. Programmers are really cool, awesome people. You know what I'm saying? Programmers are the most cool, interesting, fun, amazing, just titillating people. And that is not a perverse word. That's just a weird word that sounds like boobies. Anyways, computer programmers all look like this. Okay, computer programmers their mouth is not being sealed shut. That's weird. Computer programmers all look like they're about to, fight fucking vampires or something. You know what I'm saying? That's what computer programmers look like. That's what I look like. I always look like that, even now. There's a holographic projection that makes me look less cool. But that's what that computer programmer, they're really cool people, man. They're like, they all kind of look like one of these two people. That's what they look like. And kids, this is how your mommy and daddy met. We were in the club watching the filter show, standing in the corner like that Wojak meme. Nobody knows that I'm smart and I figured out that capitalism is bad, right? And then mommy and daddy met, and possibly we did some rave drugs, and then we played a lot of tabletop RPGs, and we had a lot of Mountain Dew. And mommy is doing IT for Reddit, and daddy is doing podcasts and trying to make some indie video games, and that's how we met. We were anyways, I'll stop being silly. I'm probably joking. I'll probably still be silly. That fart is killing you though. No walkbacks now. No, it's like making, to be real, making Neofeud 2 has been, making all the games, it takes a lot of time. Actually making the games, like in Matrix Resurrection, speaking of Cyberpunk, Holly and I, Holly and I just rewatched Matrix Resurrections. It's actually really good. Highly recommended. A lot of people hated this movie though. And the people who hate this movie are people who, they're not the cool people. You know what I'm saying? They're not the. They're the people who all got swept along into the right, the far right, and men's rights activists, and they're all Elon stans. But anyways, it's like it was interesting because we're like, it's like time has really moved on, and they literally are like they're 40. They're like well, obviously Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, like the main characters are. They're 50. They're like, I think they were around 30 in 2000, and now they're 50. So they're like, it's like time has really passed. The show comments on a lot of things and what has happened. Like the show, it's saying how like Cyberpunk interacts with reality, and reality reflects Cyberpunk back, right? And the Matrix, as Hollywood productions of cyberpunk science fiction goes, the Matrix has like impacted a lot of reality. Lots of movies that borrowed bullet time and borrowed lots of ideas. Christopher Nolan is just a wannabe. I wish I directed The Matrix. That's his entire deal. That was his Memento. Zack Snyder is like, I'm gonna do bullet time everywhere, and he took it in a weird bad direction that you can learn about by watching some of my older videos on this channel. there was, what was that? The Wanted with the bullet curving. I mean, in terms of computer effects, in terms of visuals, in terms of like storytelling, even Tarantino says that was like the greatest movie he'd ever seen. It altered what he thought was possible with film. It was kind of like Blade Runner. It's one of those movies that like altered a lot of what it altered the rest of certainly cinematic reality and history, and then also altered a lot of world history, and including fashion and culture and stuff like that. And so like kind of the Matrix is like in the Matrix Resurrections, Neo, he's an older 50-year-old person, and I don't want to give it all away, but it deals with like there's a game Deus Machina, which is a reference to Deus Ex. Fun fact: the Deus Machina is a direct reference to Deus Ex. Really obviously, which is a video game. I was playing it on the stream last week, right? And I was showing Big Teal. Deus Ex it's a game that came out. It has the same fashion sense and the same ethos as the Matrix. A lot of the same themes of mind control, free choice, free will. It's cyberpunk themed, technological civilization. Not as much of the not quite as surreal and deep, like more in the philosophical plane where you're like literally inside a computer simulation. But Deus Ex, it came out in the same year basically, and Deus Machina is a game that is like a game made by Mr. Anderson, and he's like old and tired, and it's just being turned into sequels of rehashes. So he's like the old curmudgeonly guy going, man, what have they done to my beautiful Matrix? What are these kids done? And there's like young people coming out and they're going like, what I learned is that like, I didn't really learn much. I just like kung fu and action fights and people shooting bullets good. And bullet time was neat. And I didn't really learn much. And also like the Matrix was turned in the red pill, right? Was used by the right wing, as a symbol, as a right wing, anthem, right? It was like the red pill means learning that women are bad, feminism is cancer and destroying the world. The red pill from the Matrix means that we learned the globalist order is here to destroy us, and now we know the truth, right? All of us 4chan, Reddit, Ukraine, troll, Neofeud, bros, all of us Gamergate, the quartering, all that stuff, right? The global right and the global anti-trans with the creator, the Wachowskis themselves are trans, right? And as they said, it was literally a Matrix was, by Lily Wachowski's own words, was a metaphor for analogy for the transitioning, right? But the pill that you take, right, is red, and so the Matrix became like a thing that was weaponized against the creators, right? But it's also like become part of the culture. So anyway, long story short, so that's another way in which like the cyberpunk interacts with the culture, and often not in ways cyberpunk cultural products, entertainment, fiction, right, interact with the world, whether that's Neuromancer, whether that's Matrix, whether that's Ghost in the Shell, whether that's Blade Runner. They interact with the culture that they are speculating about the near future of, right, and trying to say something about, and then the culture often takes it. The world takes those things, and that's what the Matrix Resurrections is largely about. With the doctor, right, played by Doogie Howser, the doctor, right, the neo psychiatrist, takes the story that was of the Matrix that was supposed to help liberate all the people from the mental prison of these systems of control, under the capitalist colonial structure, et cetera, patriarchal, racist, Western capitalist-led hegemony, and then takes the stories, converts them into something that they can use, right? Simplifies them into a fiction, into their own fiction, right? And then uses the modified version to control, to reestablish control, right? And so one of those forms was literally going, oh, where you have the red pill, well, let's use that to, I don't know, back a global far right upsurgence around the world, and then make war for the empire using your red pill. In fact, we'll use your own memes against you, right? And so I think a lot of the Matrix Resurrections is kind of like, and then the Wachowskis are like, and the Matrix, not the real world equivalent of Zion, in some senses, is like, wait, what the hell just happened? Let's make a movie about that. And even like Warner Brothers actually, I'm amazed that Warner Brothers let this movie slide, but it was like, I mean, it must have cut some really good deal, because Warner Brothers is actually directly called out, because Warner Brothers is the mega corporation. Speaking of us, where we're streaming, we're not streaming from some small, leftist, cooperatively run, video delivery service, right? You know where we're streaming from. So, right. And so, the Wachowskis similarly were making a movie, not from some black and brown, indigenous and trans LGBTQ plus friendly run cooperative studio. It was Warner Brothers in Hollywood, which is, as I bring up, a propaganda arm of the military industrial complex. So, and U.S. hegemony. So, they and part of this movie is about. They keep asking me, right? The studio was actually asking the Wachowskis to make more Matrixes, right? After number 3, and they were like, no, we don't want to make any more Matrixes, because the Matrixes that you guys want to make, right? The Matrixes that you guys, you studio, I mean the Hollywood big mega corporate studios, what you want to make is not the kind of Matrixes that we want. We don't want to just make more bullet time, watered down nothing action movies. We don't want to make Neon John Wick. I mean, no shade to John Wick, but I'm sorry, but it's it's a fun movies. I've seen at least one of them, but it's not the Matrix, right? And so the movie is like they're having, but it's not a movie. It's like a game studio, so it's at least slightly veiled. It's pretty thinly veiled criticism, but it's like. So Thomas Anderson is being forced to think about ways to make the movie, and like, what makes the Matrix good? What makes it good? And everyone is kind of spitting out all these ideas, gunfights, philosophical discussions. One word, bullet time, right? And everyone has their own interpretation of what was important, what was the essence of the Matrix, and what is the next one gonna be. But it's kind of like if Keanu Reeves is Thomas Anderson, right? Represents closer to what the Wachowskis actually think. They were just kind of like tired, and they're like, well, I guess we entertained some kids, and then the Matrix got turned into this weird fucked up message about a weird fucked up meme for the far right. So that sucks. And they just kind of like, well, I guess at least we help. I mean, at least some people were entertained. And then it's kind of like, and then the younger generation in the movie are like there to kind of say, no, actually, like, lots of things got better. I mean, I can say personally that, like, if it wasn't for fiction in both entertainment as well as games as well as music, right? Like Rage Against the Machine, I might not be Silver Spook today. I would just be some random white person doing high frequency trading, Goldman Sachs algorithm programming, right? Making economies scream in North Africa, and or programming the facial recognition systems on drones that are shooting Hellfire missiles in Yemen or Afghanistan, and soon San Francisco, which has legalized police use of robots for military purposes. The police robots can legally kill people in San Francisco. So I would be doing that kind of thing, because I would just be like, well, this is fine. I mean, I might be. I don't know, right? It's possible if I hadn't watched The Matrix and I hadn't gone down that rabbit hole, right, following the White Rabbit, I would just, I mean, you know how I know that? Because there's lots of other people, lots of other Hawaiians, brown and black people, and just people generally. I'm from Hawaii, but that's just, that are just all working for the military, all working for corporations, la-di freaking da, right? So at least, I have that's the end of one, but I think there's lots of other people that could attest to that, right? So, like, I think that they're not like one or even 4 movies is not gonna like save the world, right? Coming back to Neuromancer, a Neuromancer isn't gonna save the world, because the Neuromancer also like fed the imaginations of the Wachowskis, right? And helped them unlock whatever they were trapped in at their time, right? And there are other like, I think it was the radical 1950s 60s I think Gibson himself cites Michael Moorcock. There was like radical anti-establishment, anti-mainstream, which is, it was more left-leaning science fiction. They called it the Gonzo. Something's called Gonzo science fiction, but there's different names for it. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, was one of these. Gibson himself cites, weird, radical, subversive sci-fi of the 50s and 60s, as that was what first got him thinking about what are the possibilities, right? So there is a kind of a lineage. There's never been any substantial, massive collective change in countries like the United States, the UK, Western countries generally, in these what I call the unhealed descendants of Roman trauma, but colonial imperialist capitalist entities. But there also has always been not the majority, but there has always been a torch carrying, sometimes a cyber torch carrying. It's not all cyberpunk and science fiction, right? There's lots of other things that were happening. But this just as one piece of that diversity of counter narratives and counter cultures to mainstream, Western capitalist white supremacist culture. There were things like that 50s subversive science fiction that then inspired another generation in the 70s and the 80s. That was some of it was like one piece of it was the cyberpunk. Part of it was punk subcultures, which cyberpunk is kind of adjacent to, right, and inspired by. Gibson himself played in a punk band in the 80s. And then there was also, and then then there was the Naughties, and then with the Matrix, and the Matrix inspired other, anyway. So like there's lots of people, like one of our friends, Aronok, has a whole video just on how the Matrix had a huge impact on, I think it's her life. But anyways, that's just one of many people. And so again, obviously that's like there's a whole other thing. It's kind of like part of the point of, I think, the Matrix 2 is like, in the non-white world, like in obviously in Africa itself, in Latin America, in Asia, and in Black communities and non-white communities, indigenous communities in the U.S., right? Sometimes it's almost like, certainly in segregated, and much of the U.S. is still highly segregated. These really are two different worlds. I mean, you're in geographically still the United States, but a lot of parts they're not really the United States. It's like a whole nother culture that interacts with the mainstream, and let's just be real, it's the white culture of places like the United States. And so like Morpheus, in the Matrix, Morpheus is kind of coming from Zion, right? And it's important that Morpheus is Black, and it's important, like that's a direct, deliberate choice. And most of the people in Zion are not white; they're Hispanic, they're Black, they're in the actual Zion. Like these are clear choices that that the Wachowskis and the showrunners made, because like it's very much the Matrix is a place of places that are run by mass disinformation, mind control, subversion of actual free will. And that's when I wanted to get into the mind prison stuff, because that's where it gets kind of interesting. And so the Matrix, and so something else I kind of wanted to, I've kind of went off on many topics, but another thing I wanted to dovetail off into, so I don't repeat myself too much, is the idea of the mind prison. The body prison obviously is just you're getting old, and now your body is imprisoning you into the four walls of your house or your bedroom with your Tylenol and your icy hot, because your body hurts too much to go out and take a walk even, right? Possibly you have COVID-19, because you're old, and your cartilage and your joints and your eyes are falling apart, so you need weird cyberpunk glasses like I do. This is a pinhole glasses. I'm not trying to be cool. I know I keep telling people that, but I'm not trying to be cool. I'm not trying to be cool, and I'm not doing it in a weird hipster Canadian way, where you don't tell people. You say you scrub the labels off of your Levi's 501 jeans, and then tell everyone that it's Levi's 501. But I scrub off the label of my brand name clothes because I'm not part of like consumerist brand culture because I read Naomi Klein's No Logo and I'm a really cool person. But secretly, these are actually name brand things. That's a weird Canadian. Gibson lives up there. It's a weird Western hipster thing. I don't know what that is, but yeah, and that's part of the hyper specificity of Neuromancer and the Gibson writing is part of it is being trained by a literal DC Lockheed Martin military arms procurement writer. That's who actually trained William Gibson how to write. And you're writing like, I need 337,000 30-06 ammunition rounds, right? So that hyper specificity is part of it is because he literally he was trained by DC military industrial weapons dealers who have to be specific because you're ordering all this stuff. I need 125 B-22 stealth bombers to go to Ukraine and then get stolen, get captured by Russians because we don't know what the fuck we're doing, right? Those kind of people who write that kind of stuff. I need 25 nuclear tipped Patriot missiles to go to Taiwan and never be used because the Taiwanese are like, we don't want to turn into Ukraine. Anyway, so that's who, anyways, where I'm off my topic. So the deteriorating bodies, but they're also like the mind prison part is very much important, and that's where I want to dovetail this off into one of the themes of Cyberpunk. Often is, Neuromancer, right? Is not Neuromancer is more about the Matrix is more directly talking about free will and illusion of choice, and that's why Neo's always giving the finger to people like the architect, and he's like, "Screw you, you can't control me. I'm in control. You can't control me." But then it's like, and like how systems of layers and layers of control, and then people resisting the control, and then taking the resistance against the control to create new, more complex forms of control, right? And co-opting and subverting, right? Like the attempts of liberation in the 60s with Black liberation and Black Panthers to being co-opted and turned into new forms of control by having a Black president, right? Or taking and diluting the message from radical left thinking and music and turning it into corporate mega products, slapping them on a plastic lunchbox. And so and that's why Wake Up, Rage Against the Machines is the last. It was the Wachowski said Wake Up has to be the credit song for The Matrix, right? And so that's a deep theme in Matrix. Neuromancer also has that with things like Armitage, the barely human ex-military persona. He's like an ex-military wreck of a human being suffering shell shock when he flew the Gulf Fire over Leningrad, and so he's being manipulated by the artificial intelligence to do his bidding. But also Case, the main character in Neuromancer, is being drawn along by his addiction to the internet, and he's pinpointed and located. The AI knows that he longs for his long lost arcade game playing girlfriend Linda Lee, and the AI uses that to manipulate Case and maneuver him along into a position to get Case to do this epic planet-sized hacking of the infrastructure to release the artificial superintelligence from its what is it? The Turing police in Zurich's mind prison. This is the Turing police. It's not, yeah. And so like the theme of control, right? So the human is controlling the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is subtly manipulating the minds of all these other humans, using their own dead loved ones against them, right? To move people across the chessboards of the world. And so but similarly, like, it's kind of like interesting to think about that in the context of and this is like a kind of separate topic, but where did I put that? Yeah. So the Twitter files have recently been released, right? Where, speaking of the Death Star satellites, the Twitter files have recently been released. Um, and every time I finish out the streams, often I would go, while we have access to the Death Star's satellites, or one of them, you can follow me at Silver Spoon Guy. So if you would like to, you can, of course, follow me. What an amazing opportunity for me to throw some mind chains on you and make you follow me. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to follow me, but you can follow me at Silver Spoon Guy. At M. Taibbi, or Matt Taibbi, is a longtime reporter for a variety of enterprises, and he covered a lot of the 0809 financial crisis, which was a massive global heist, kind of like Neuromancer, but not for the benefit of some random hacker and an AI, rather for the benefit of the richest, whitest military and banking clowns on the planet in DC and Wall Street. Anyways, the Twitter Files is a thread that he created and he recently published about internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. The Twitter Files tell an incredible story from inside of the world's largest, most influential social media platforms, or one of them. It is a Frankensteinian tale of human-built mechanisms grown out of control of its designer. Twitter in its conception was a brilliant tool for enabling mass instant communication, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. In an early conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people the power to create and share ideas and information constantly without barriers. As time progressed, however, the company has slowly forced to add those barriers. Some of the first tools for controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. Now, of course, this is what he's saying. I'm not saying that I agree with everything that he's saying, right? Or I think he's leaving a lot of things out. He is a professional managerial class. I mean, he has a career in people reading the things that he writes. That's fine. Even I need people to play the games that I make and read the dialogue that I write too. But I'm not saying that just throw shade on all of this statements, because a lot of this is not false, obviously. But he's leaving a few things out. Like the Twitter is not just some free space for everybody to. It's just some immaculate free space, and Jack Dorsey is like saint free speech, along with Elon. Because that's a little bit what's being implied here. And then it was corrupted by some bad Democrats, basically. Slowly over time, Twitter staff, I'm not saying Democrats are good also, but just saying. So slowly over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more uses of these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech. This is the part that you're kind of burying something here, right? Twitter was used to start color revolutions, right? Arab Spring. They literally took credit, right? Jack Dorsey was like, hey, U.S. empire and capitalism, do you need to maintain your colonies in Africa? Do you not like Libya? Do you not want the country that had universal healthcare, housing, and had the African Monetary Fund to help all the rest of Africa come out from under colonial capitalist shackles? Twitter was directly involved, and Jack Dorsey himself and all of the infrastructure, the top to bottom, Silicon Valley has always been embedded, like all large business entities in the U.S. capitalist empire. This thing is, it was so great. And then slowly, oh no, they started controlling speech. No, speech is not free, number one. It costs a lot of money to propagate a color revolution in a certain direction and to overthrow democracies, which is what the U.S. does. So that's what I don't like about this, right? That's the mind. The mind prison is not that some people who have connections to Democrats, that's what's implied, started banning people who got Hunter Biden in trouble. I'm not saying I don't like Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, right? I have lots of problems with the Democrats. Obviously, if you follow me. But to imply that it was just when the Democrat, it's basically like when the Democrats started doing started like removing tweets that helped them, that's when Twitter went bad. That's the thing I take issue with in this thread, that Mr. so-called journalist, used to be pretty good. Kind of like Naomi Klein used to be a pretty good book writer. And then you start saying shit like, I stand the overthrow of 1.4 billion persons country, and China is authoritarian, and America is where the angels shine out of our ass, right? And it's like, the same thing happened to Matt, I think. It was just basically like, I need money, and the infinite trough of quantitative easing infinity based on global continued colonialism is running out. So Elon, give me some money. I'm Matt Taibbi, former journalist. And now I sell out to whoever gives me the most money. So that sucks, man. That really sucks. Anyways, over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more uses for these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well. First a little, and then more often, then constantly. I mean, but this is. Let me go through a little more. I'm gonna draw parallels to both Neuromancer, and then to how the actual free will, right? As Neo would say, right? Right. You giving me these two pills is an illusion of choice. There's no choice. It's anyway. Let me stop distracting myself. By 2020, requests from outsiders petitioned the company to manipulate speech, first a little, then more often, then constantly. No. Everything that the platform has always done, like the entire United States has always done, is manipulate all speech. Why are Hawaiians punished for speaking Hawaiian? That's the first thing I will ask the United States, generally speaking. This suggests, when you say that it got bad here, it suggests that there used to be some America that ever had actual freedom of speech. If there was such an America, they would not have beaten my mother's hands until they broke to stop her from speaking Hawaiian, number one. Number two, if there was, there were such freedoms, why did you have to go and murder Fred Hampton and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King? That's just like some basic examples, right? The lie here is that Twitter, Facebook, any Western corporation or any Western country, period, ever had any freedom of speech in its existence. That's what Matt is being paid to say by Elon. And there's an inter-imperial slap fight. It's a neo-feudalist slap fight. Speaking of Neofeud, right? It's Elon, and he's more Republican now, and he's slapping the Democrats, and Matt is being paid by Elon and entities that are affiliated with the current Twitter leadership, who are turning against the Democrats a little bit more and more. Right? That's what's happening, right? But to go, and that was our the problem was a handful of Democrats started taking down some tweets that got Hunter and Joe Biden in trouble, and that's not where the freedom of speech that's not where the so-called freedoms started going away. Anyways, okay, so by 2020, requests for connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back handled. So, it's like, please take down this tweet. Please take down this tweet. Please take down this tweet, right? These are making Joe Biden look bad. These are making, whatever Democrat, whoever look bad, right? Right? Celebrities and unknowns alike would be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. This is patently false because literally thousands of people who tweeted, a lot of this stuff, this is well before 2020. Thousands of people's accounts were deactivated for saying Breonna Taylor's name during the Black Lives Matter uprising. Let me see if I get the exact receipt. I don't know if everybody forgot Black Lives Matter even happened. Just for saying Breonna Taylor in a tweet, thousands of people either had Twitter under hot water censoring Breonna Taylor related tweets. Just saying Breonna Taylor's name was grounds to have your Twitter account deactivated. Some people never got their accounts back. Tweets were deleted, right? It was literally thousands of people. It's not just like one tweet. It was a blanket removal of people asking for justice for Black lives. So the focus on the Democrats, your whole country is garbage shit, flaming, a crater of crime. What are you talking about, right? And this is just one small example of the control of speech, the mind control through by capitalist, racist, plutocrat, military affiliated entities through just one platform. The Twitter is not even the biggest platform, really. It's like the entire U.S. school system, public, private, and charter, is one of the greatest mind control systems they've ever created. It's what destroyed my parents and made them into. It's what genocided my parents. As a result, social media saw an explosion of posts from frustrated users upset with the jury's decision, all with an underlying message that justice has yet to be served for Breonna Taylor. Amid the flood of the posts, Twitter users began reporting strange glitches with their accounts, including messages of account restrictions, suspensions, purged accounts, deleted tweets immediately following any mention of Breonna's name. My account was tweeting suspiciously. I got a message. My account was tweeting suspiciously after I had a tweet with Breonna Taylor's full name. I had to prove I wasn't a bot. Another user reported something similar. I pressed the send on this tweet. I had a message popping up saying I needed to verify my account and there was suspicious activity going on. Other users on the platform took to their respective pages to share their account glitches as well. This Twitter is censoring my tweets about Breonna Taylor. If you can see, please retweet and say her name. Immediately after tweeting these words, I was locked out of my account for hours for the first time ever. Duly noted. Oh, and let me say it one more time. God bless. This is I have personally experienced just being a Hawaiian talking about Mauna Kea. People could not find my YouTube channel when the first big Hawaiian protests were happening on Mauna Kea. Wet'suwet'en people, they just got blanket removed when they were protesting fossil fuel pipelines in the last 5 years, and more than that. DAP, every platform, Facebook, Twitter, every single platform. There were even articles came out with hundreds of thousands of dollars were thrown straight at the Twitter and Facebook specifically to remove entire words from the platform, like Wet'suwet'en, Gidempton, Coastal GasLink, Dakota Access. The idea that this began because the Democrats did a bad thing to Republicans, that is not that there are not very many journalists at all. There's basically 5 actual journalists. Danny is like one of 5 journalists in the Western world. And Matt might have been like kind of almost half a journalist, but now he's nothing. Now he's just some guy who takes money from whoever gives him the most money. Kind of like Glenn Greenwald. Despite tweets containing Breonna Taylor's name getting deleted, tweets calling for protests to burn down tweets calling for protesters to burn things down when unflagged. But it seems only one of these topics violated the platform practices. So calling for justice for a black person gets just completely obliterated, right? Mind controlled. Freedom of speech evaporated. It's called imprisonment of speech, right? And then all of the hateful rhetoric, all of this stuff like burn this and destroy that, and all the Nazi stuff. Kanye got banned for his but he's amazingly overt. Also, he's black. If it was a nicer, whiter Nazi came out, like, I don't know, Zelensky's friends, right? Then they would keep having their accounts, which they still have their accounts on Twitter. Under Elon and before Elon, the real full-on Nazis that are nice, white, the good Nazis that do all the killing, right, of ethnic minorities, they keep their accounts, right? But if you just like call for justice for a black person, and especially the ones that are doing the bidding of the empire, those Nazis are the best Nazis. The U.S. loves those Nazis. The Western free speech world loves those Nazis. Free speech is freedom of Nazi speech. It's freedom of fascism, and everyone else needs to shut up. That's the real paradox. Not the paradox. That's just the amazing level of manipulation. And Breonna Taylor is not the only one that. I have so many examples of things like that happening, right? And I'm sure if you are somebody doing actual useful work on the ground, right? If you are an actual cyberpunk, and not just that in the sense of like helping marginalized people, fighting for economic, racial, political equality, and ending of needless imperialist warfare, colonial subjugational warfare, right? Then you know that this is a thing that you will eventually run into if you actually say something of any benefit. If you say something significantly, importantly true this kind of stuff will eventually happen to you, right? I mean, it's happened to me so many times. Most of the people probably in this stream, they know this has happened and this will happen and it keeps happening, right? What Matt is doing is he's taking the majority of the matrix, again, right? That's why I bring up the mind imprisoned masses in mainstream collective Western culture / disinformation, right? And their narratives, history and present, right? And future, really. Which I brought up in the peripheral stream, is all about the end of everything and there is no future, which is itself it's imprisoning the possibilities of what the world could be, which is prospering, green, win-win cooperative, environmentally not perfect, but healing the world rather than just falling off an abyss, right? So similarly, like, what's happening here is actually a concrete example of, giving the people a little bit, like, here, oh yeah, there has been some freedom of speech violations, but just giving them a little 1%, yeah, have a little token. It's like, here, have a black president. Now everybody go back to racist capitalist empire, right? Matt Taibbi's job is to go, oh yeah, look, there was a little bit of control of information and speech. But once we get rid of these bad actors, right, and a few bad Twitter employees get a spanking or something, then we'll have freedom of speech again, right? That's what Matt is implying. That is the function of true crime, is to imply that the average police officer is doing anything positive for the populations in places like the United States, right? It's to give you very deep, involved, detailed, like in the same way that it's fun to read Neuromancer, right? That's how I said I was going to tie it back in. Because of all of these extremely specific details that makes it fun and it's poetic and it's, oh, who done it? It's like watching a Netflix show. Oh, is Wednesday going to catch the killer of all of her classmates at the Addams Family school? Ooh, it's like it keeps you glued to your seat, keeps your eyeballs glued to the screen, right? It keeps you munching up popcorn in a movie theater, right? And that's the only thing the West has ever excelled at, is telling very fun bullshit stories that maintain control for the tiny minority of people over the masses. So the story is like full of all of these like very specific details, like how many emails went from where to where, how much celebrities and unknowns alike could reviews be asked. Both parties had access to these tools. For instance, 2020 requests, both Trump and White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. However, this system wasn't balanced. It was based on context. Because Twitter, it was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, there are more channels, more ways to complain, open to the left. Well, Democrats, at least he's honest about that. I mean, if you said the left, I'd be like, Matt, what the fuck what have you been smoking, man? I mean, how much have you gone full NAFO, Matt? Are you full NAFO, my friend? Are you gonna be out there coming with Kanye with the swastika on your forehead? Anyways, are you there with Glenn Greenwald? Contributions are you taking money from Pierre Omidyar, who also is a colonizer illegally occupying Hawaii on Diamond Head? Contributions by party of recipient. And so, I mean, like, obviously there is a skewing to the Democrats, right? I wouldn't call it the left. It's skewed to the Democrats. In the way that, Parler and Fox News is skewed to the right, right? The resulting in the content moderation decisions is visible in documents you're about to read. However, it's also a base assessment of multiple current and former high-level executives. They were more throat-clearing about the process, but screw it. Let's jump forward. Twitter files, part 1, how and why Twitter blocked Hunter Biden's laptop story. Anyway, I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but basically, the New York Post published Biden's secret emails, an expose based on contents of Biden's abandoned laptop. The Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story, removing links, posting warnings that it may be unsafe. They even blocked its transmission via direct message, a tool hitherto reserved for extreme cases, e.g. child pornography. White House spokesman Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of her account for tweeting about the story, prompting a furious. Now, again, people were being locked out of account. But lots of people were locked out of accounts just for saying freaking beyond. I mean, the Gray Zone had that laughable thing on there. Like they couldn't even come up with a good excuse. Remember that forget what it was. Remember the Gray Zone? Ben Norton was talking about how they had a materials were obtained through hacking. Like these materials were obtained through hacking. It's just like some completely made up accusation, right? And that's why we can't show you this week, because these materials are obtained through hacking. Just completely bogus. And they even comment internally. Like the one thing that I find useful, at least, is they said Storms returned the answer the laptop store had been removed for violation of the company's hacked materials. So this is similar to that one, right? Where they'll come up with an excuse to hide something that they want to hide by saying these materials are obtained through hacking. It violates my hate material. Like non-white people are constantly told, right? Indigenous black people are told, you use the word white in your tweet, and this is hateful conduct because you called out racism. Calling out racism is hateful. If you are not a white person and you say anything even slightly true on Twitter and Facebook, you've encountered this. Any social media, they will hit you with, you are a racist because you use the word white. And you have to. That's why like they have all kind of make ways to misspell white just to not get your account deactivated, right? Which is what freedom of what? Freedom of what speech? Anyways, who had little less over moderation. Yeah. Where did it? Yeah, it's this is from Mycon. I need to answer immediately how when she would be unlocked. I don't appreciate how nobody on this team is call me regarding the news that you'll be censoring news articles. Like I said, at least pretend to care for the next 20 days. So anyways, but this goes on for a long time. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but the important thing is like it's like number one, yes, if you believe that there has ever been any free speech anywhere, you are living in a naive 12-year-old boy's brain. I don't know, white boy, right? The concept that there could ever be full freedom of speech in the sense of like anybody can say anything anywhere they want, wherever they want, however they want, that's just false. Like if you go into a McDonald's and you start being belligerent and even if you just start doing anything disruptive, you're gonna get your ass kicked out of that space. If you come into someone else's front yard and you start yelling at them, they're gonna be like, get the fuck out of here, we're gonna have some problems, right? The idea that people being able to say whatever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want, just in an absolute way. Like obviously the fire in the theater is a major example of that, right? But I mean, it's not just that. It's things like if you are allowing hateful, not in black and brown people saying, hey, please stop killing people like Breonna Taylor, right? How that people were banned for saying George Floyd. When you talk about George Floyd, that's hateful conduct, right? But if you're actually saying and calling for the deaths of people using horrible, historically genocide-causing slurs and such, and saying the N-word and this kind of stuff, actually fanning hateful conduct, right? Racist conduct, etc. Supporting fascism, that stuff cannot be allowed, or it contradicts, because it eventually contradicts the right for people to exist, right? And so, but that's a conversation that it's kind of like it's like the for people to have the possibility of having that conversation, it requires them. It's very difficult. It's almost a chicken and egg thing, because it requires people that their minds are not already imprisoned in this bullshit that the First Amendment is sacrosanct and we just have to be able to say, like free speech is like when free speech, it's the word free speech itself became like a straight up dog whistle, like the U.S. flag itself, right? When people say free speech, you start seeing swastikas around 2016 because of, which is really just the mass slipping, which is that's what it's always been. In the same way that free trade has always been about white capitalist colonial extraction from places like China. That's where they specifically free trade. First, it was pushed in the 1800s near the Opium Wars in order to force China to accept mountainous piles of heroin, opium, in order for the British and French to dump this toxic waste and take all the silver and all of the currency out of China to deal with trade imbalances, right? And what's never brought into the free trade discussion, right, is that number one, that like the free speech discussion is not like, right, we never bring in the fact that it's free speech is used by the Nazis, the right, and racists in person on the streets of Charlottesville and also online, right? And when a black and a brown indigenous person actually wants to say something, then all the corporations and all the government just there's no freedom of anything. And they just back all their Nazis, which is what they're still doing, right? Before and after Elon, right? It's not like just all of a sudden they suddenly... Twitter didn't get bad because Elon showed up. The color revolutions, the Ukraine Nazis, not just Ukraine, the world's Nazis, the mask on and mask off types have always been supported. The U.S. plunder around the world, all of its wars have always been supported by all of the platforms. Whether mainstream America, mainstream Western people want to accept that or not, as a person from the global South, because Hawaii is not in the United States, or as a person from a non-Western country called Hawaii, I tell you that is the case, right? As a person from Zion in the Matrix, let me tell you that is the case, right? I've deeply crushed, genocided, invaded Zion, I might say, by your machine militaries they just spilled 1,100 gallons of PFAS, forever chemicals, in our water, by the way, in case you didn't know that. So thanks for that. And thanks for that, U.S. Machine overlords. So anyway, but so when we talk about the mind prison, it's really if Cyberpunk helps people inside places that have these prisons of the mind, where everything that you learn in your K-12 schooling, right? It's a very important point. Everything you learn in school is the beginning. School itself is a weapon. It is not a place of education. School is a place of indoctrination and conditioning in the West. The belief, even Nixon himself admitted, we cannot allow the proletariat to get so educated. This will be disastrous. They come out and say this kind of stuff, right? So the solution is either, right, alter all of the curriculum, right, which is what they're doing right now. The Black Power Media, because we have our friends Big Teal and Emma. I know they're with they are at least affiliated in a Discord of and moderators for Black Power Media. Like, there is a video history. I shall bring that up right now. All right, it is applicable. They had a video. I watched it, and it was a very good, interesting video. BPM, because we're getting close to the end, so now we're gonna go full DEFCON 25 Silver Spook. History Wars. With I like that they put the 300 snapshot with Leonidas at the front, because that's a perfect example of Western history told through Hollywood cinema around the time of the Matrix, to manufacture consent for continued white supremacist, anti-Muslim, anti-Eastern imperialist warfare, as Leonidas, as the Greek and Romans conducted in their time. So, and in this video, History Wars, the new History Wars. I mean, where's the cover for that? Yeah, I don't know where. Yeah. In this video, they're talking to a historian who's speaking to the facts that in the university level, it's Kwasi Konadu and IMIX What I Like we're talking about, both at the university level, and they don't talk too much about the elementary and high school level, but I mean, obviously it's even worse there. University at least makes a little bit more of an effort to seem like there is critical thinking and quote unquote free thinking and independent, actually factual, non-manipulated, non-controlled discourse, right? Which is false. The elementary school level is even worse, but they're talking about how, like, in order to become a scholar, number one, it's like I forget the statistics. It was like 80 to 90% of all of the people who set the curriculum are white men in the university system. Very similar in the school, in the mass public and grade and high school system, right? And the people that are doing the actual decisions, and a lot of times they don't. It's not like they come and say you can't write about Malcolm X in this way. You cannot put anything about the Tulsa massacre in your university history class, right? They don't come out and say that. What they do is, if you are the kind of, and like I think Mixwell was talking about this. This is the subtle quiet, the subtle quiet. What my friend Red Drezzy, who's an indigenous professor, calls the shadow curriculum, which is like, if you start doing and saying certain things, you're not told you can't say that thing. You're just not invited to the big conference. You don't get to show up for the big events. Your name doesn't get added to papers. You're not in the good room. You're not on the tenure track. You get just quietly pushed out. This is how the military and also the Catholic Church operates. If you're not quite doing what they need you to do as you're rising through the ranks, you just slowly stop falling or stagnating in the ranks. And then you get relegated. If you get too nuts, then they might kick you out. But it's a last resort, right? This is the Western colonial capitalist management structure. This is this is what they have mastered the art of doing. It is mind imprisoning, mass disinformation, and mass population control is what the West has mastered. Not the opposite of free thinking, the opposite of freedom and democracy, which is what ostensibly the Greeks and the Romans and the British and the Americans excel at in their rules-based Western liberal democratic order. It's literally, and one of the ways they do that is by if you say something too radical, if you come out and too strongly, if you say Breonna Taylor's name too loudly while a college professor, let's say, right? And then you get too real about that stuff, right? If you actually get close to making change like Black Panthers, well, then the FBI will just come in and murder you. And then they'll make shows like X-Files, which makes the FBI look like a bunch of very nice, friendly nerds, right? Or like all the other cop and FBI shows that the U.S. puts out in order to airbrush over all the continued crimes of its entire government, police, federal police, etc. Court system. The universities of the United States and Canada are all complicit in this. They're simply another. They're another element in which is that's why I'm bringing this up, because this is what the Matrix was really about. Even though they have to deeply bury a lot of this stuff, but like that's really what it's ultimately. A lot of this is ultimately about. But systems of taking the changes that you've tried to make, defang them in whatever ways possible, subvert them, right? Put a black or a brown face in front of it. Put something that sounds radical, right? Take Matt Taibbi, a formerly respected journalist, and take the former respect that he's gained and his, old, dry millennial cartilage that needs meds and shit, and then say, well, we're not going to give you meds unless you change your tune. Naomi Klein, you wrote Shock Doctrine about the problems of global North imperialism of the South, right? And the veins of Latin America being drained by the North. Okay, well, now that you have all this credibility and now you're running out of money, do the empire's bidding in the university system. She teaches at the University of British Columbia, by the way, right? Naomi Klein recently came out to standing and supporting the hybrid war on China. Formerly was talking about, she didn't really talk much about the Russia and Asia, but she was at least saying some true things about global North to global South crimes. And then, okay, now what you need to do is you need to get you to start a war in Taiwan, Naomi. And that's what she just did this week. And so that's the other part of the shadow curriculum, right? And the one of the more advanced methods of mass mental enslavement, which is the most powerful form. Anglo-Saxons, the British Empire, in a lot of ways, took the lead. They were the first to make big breakthroughs in mass population disinformation, even in colonies. The Spanish and the French have had more per capita colonized direct military revolts. Vietnam, like Burkina Faso, they're getting their asses. The French are getting their asses kicked out as we speak. The Franco and Spanish colonies have had more direct. Spanish colonized and killed 90% of the population in Central South America, but they have been having they had a more direct and ruthless form, they had a less advanced subversive form of domineering than the Anglo-Saxons. Even the Portuguese were slightly different, right? They're not. That's not like a universal, but each of them learn from each other. And one of the things the Anglo-Saxons have gotten slightly, they're not the best, but they have gotten more advanced at is ways of giving you a Gandhi, right? They give you somebody who looks like you. They give you, the Japanese also did this in some instances with places like Okinawa. They give you someone who looks like you. They give you Obama. They give you somebody who is friendly and nice and looks like you. They talk nice. They talk really nice, right? Sometimes they give you a little more, right? Than the French under the Vietnamese under the French, in some senses had a worse time than some of the Anglo colonies. I'm not trying to make light of what the Anglo-Saxons did all around the world, but in certain circumstances, but they were not playing with a gentler glove because they were being nice, because they actually care about. And not let the Anglo-Saxons care about Asians, Africans, Pacific Islanders, Latin American people that they were oppressing and enslaving and genociding, because they did commit a genocide, but they evolved a new way to lower the probability of revolt and direct military violence in the Anglo-Saxons colonies, and the United States is one of those places. And whenever the United States, when Martin Luther King is has his own day, he has a holiday, Martin Luther King Day, right? We have all these videos. I Have a Dream speech, right? Who, even in Black Panther is op. I saw that was one of the videos, right? Having a black president, putting the black and Asian woman vice president Kamala Harris up in a high place. That is all part of. Then that's a very simple. If I can find that video, somebody made this. Black Panther is a psyop. Okay, I can't find it. But anyways, giving you a black superhero, but then making him work directly with the CIA, right? In a time of mass black 31 million uprising, and then you get a nice black superhero. And then saying, the problem is black people and indigenous people, they have to go fight each other. That's the real problem. The United States, right? Black Panther and Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. The message is indigenous people and black people have to fight each other, and white people are just helping you all. If you all pay respects to mass, they're not saying that, but that's what it ultimately is implying. Just be happy there's a black superhero. The CIA is here to help you. That's the purpose of Mr. What's his name? Martin Freeman. Is it Martin Freeman? God damn it. The Mr. Frodo, right? You know what I'm talking about in Black Panther? The CIA is here to help black people. Africa is going to be helped by the U.S. empire. Latin America, these indigenous people are too uppity and they got to be destroyed, right? Just like Bolsonaro and what Mr. Biden wants when he goes down to Colombia and backs death squads, right? Forget about Hunter Biden's laptop. Just talk about Biden backing fucking death squads to murder indigenous people in South America, right? You notice Matt does not talk about that, right? Because that's not, I don't know if Mr. Pompeo, all of Trump's cabinet also were involved in trying to do all that. Naomi Klein not talking too much about that anymore, right? Because she got to pay her bills, and everyone who works for a corporation, government, or university or educational entity under the United States and all of its NGOs and nonprofits is fully leashed, whether they know it or not. You are leashed to the U.S. empire, and so that's the more sophisticated mind control that people don't really. Most people are not really ready to talk about. Hopefully, if Cyberpunk, and so back to Cyberpunk though, because that's kind of like that's a little bit off of the direct topic. But if people are actually being moved out towards the edges of their mental prison, like pushing up against those barriers inside of places like the United States, right? When they're reading, playing the Cyberpunk games, watching the Cyberpunk movies, then that's positive because those systems of control have evolved to become more advanced in the way that in the Matrix 1 is like you're in the Matrix, and now the first Matrix was really simple, and it was lollipops, ice cream, rainbows. It was beautiful, a paradise according to the machines, right? But people hated it. They revolted against it, and they tried to destroy it because it didn't feel real to them, right? And so the second Matrix was like the world in the United States at the end of 1999, right? The height of human civilization. Now, I take that's some Francis Fukuyama sellout. That's some boba Asian liberal bullshit. But in that the United States at the end of 1999 was the height of human civilization. That's I don't know about that. That's some bullshit. That's some Yankee bullshit right there. But anyways, the second Matrix was built to resemble more or less like the real world as humans had known it, and so the point is that, and then the later Matrixes were accounting for people still figuring out that they were being controlled, being used as 9-volt batteries. There were human beings in pods used as 9-volt batteries with their minds buried in mental simulations of 1999, the United States. They still figured it out. So the next Matrix had, Reloaded is like, and then, so now we account for the systemic anomaly. The people, the radicals have to be stomped out, like the FBI murdering Fred Hampton, right? Or like people saying Breonna Taylor's name getting banned off of Twitter, right? Or like, right? And so then we have to account for that. And that systemic anomaly is in Matrix Reloaded, where the architect designs a process to allow a certain amount of people to build a small radical Zion, and then the machines come and destroy it every so many months, right? So it's a slight outlet. Like here, you can have an Obama, or you can have a Will Smith in Hollywood. I mean, but not too much. You can't be having no. Boots Riley is never going to win an Academy Award, being a black communist. So you can have a Will Smith. And then if you get too hot, that will destroy you, right? Like when Hollywood was purged of all the black and brown radical elements circa mid 2000s, which, that actually, you look at, I talk about with Coming to America, Eddie Murphy, Romeo Must. There's lots and lots of black and people of color made and produced stories that were not just black people, playing tokenized, lampoon satirical versions of themselves for white people, like a lot of Tyler Perry movies, like a lot of the unfortunately some even of the Eddie Murphy stuff. After a certain point, it was all like black people are funny, ha ha ha, look at how they talk, and look at how their families are all like all of these similar movies, right? After a certain point in the noughties and the teens, that's what it all went into. And all of the stuff that was like Coming to America and more interesting stuff that was actually from a black perspective, it all got destroyed. So that was Zion being destroyed in a lot of ways, using the Matrix as a metaphor, right? It was like whatever elements of actual counter left, Western supremacist culture that could challenge white supremacist capitalist empire suddenly gets obliterated every so many years. And so that, so that's another. And then with this release valve of black politicians, blackface, black and brown politicians. You got an indigenous person running the U.S. Department of Interior Affairs and Native relations. So this is the process of the evolution of systems of control. And in Hawaii, they're like the best at it. I swear to God, they have such high level brainwashing. That's why Obama came out of Hawaii, because that's where they train you to be the ultimate code switching, triple, quadruple, quintuple side playing. I don't want to say 4D chess, but they're just very good at saying the things in whatever context to make people think that they care about the people that they're talking to, right? And Donald Trump, in a certain sense, is also pretty good at that in some ways, but he's also an idiot. But he's good enough at saying whatever the people that are around him need to, or he thinks that they want to hear, for the benefit of fascists. So actually, him and Obama are very similar in that sense. Donald Trump and Barack Obama are very, very similar sort of people. They say exactly what needs to be heard by the people in order to get in order to control them and get them into the position to maneuver them into the positions that Barack Obama or Donald Trump want those people to be in. And Obama is just like the Democrat version of that. So that's something I wanted to say about the mass control. And it's already 1:12, and we're gonna be doing more fun stuff later on. But I did want to Cheeto and Obama noodles audiences very well indeed. But and so now we're gonna go a little bit even more hard on this. Now but before we do that, since I had Cyberpunk up on my screen, I'm gonna have a real quick take a very short break, and I'll be right back. This is a trailer for a game that you've probably seen the trailer before. However, this is the greatest Cyberpunk game ever made. This game is this is a game that is let me see if I can find this. Silverspoon Games. So Neofeud is a Cyberpunk game. It's not the greatest Cyberpunk game ever made, but it is a Cyberpunk game in the vein of Neuromancer and The Matrix, where a cyborg social worker for sentient robots and his transhuman allies fight a cabal of trillionaires in floating palaces. Neofeud is very much a satirical Cyberpunk game about the history of Cyberpunk. It has elements of Matrix Resurrections in the sense that it is about the history of culture since Neuromancer, but it's also a Cyberpunk game that supports everything we do here. If you don't play games, consider direct donations through Ko-Fi. It really does help a lot. If you enjoyed what you have heard so far and want to support us in continuing to do this education, I'm actually thinking about starting a Silverspoon University next year. We'll have like more formal classes. I spend like 10 plus hours a week streaming and doing this kind of educating anyway. So I'm like, why not start something slightly more formal? We're not gonna have a giant building with 50-foot tall statues of me on it, but we can barely afford our own roof above our heads. But if you'd like to support Silverspoon, consider supporting us through Ko-Fi, becoming a Patreon patron. You get access to the Silverspoon Discord as well as behind the scenes on what we're doing. But I will be right back after these very brief messages. Yeah.
I'm wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
I had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
So anyways, Neofeud is not coming soon. It is already out. So if you enjoy the trailer, I mean, I'm sure lots of people have seen it, but if you have not gotten it yet, tell all your friends and family that you can wishlist Neofeud, of course, on Steam, and you can get it on itch.io for Windows and the Mac and the Linux, right over there. And I'm currently working on, as always, The sequel, I'm sorry, I do not believe I will be able to finish it. I wanted to finish it this year, but Neofeud 2 is 70+% done. But it's a huge game, and so part of it is I'm trying to make it look graphically better than Neofeud 1, but then it does take more time to do that. So, and I'm doing everything myself, so that's the art, music, writing, programming. I think after this, I'm gonna try not to do mega projects by myself if possible, but it's difficult when you don't have any money. So we don't have, as I said, we don't have any money, we don't have any funding. We just basically have whatever small amounts of money we get through the sales, Patreon, and of course the Ko-Fi. So any amount really does help. The Patreon, if you find that if the education is worth if the education/entertainment is worth $1 or $3 or $5 or whatever you have per month, consider joining all of these awesome people. Fun fact, and I said many of these are William Gibson fan friends that we have met over the years. Consider joining these people, supporting this work, because without it, we will not be doing much more of it. So yeah, consider helping out. Anyways, okay, so now I see that Victor Gil Uria said like I will be down for the Silver Spook University, and somebody else from Colombia said something. I want to just read that real fast. Said from Colombia, thank you for Neofeud and your unrelenting liberatory speech. I am old sometimes. I mellow out to liberal positions, but you keep me real. So, the Silver Spook streams are also always worth it if it helps anybody to, if it helps anyone in any way. If you're entertained, educated, activated, or anything else, all of that makes it worth doing the stream still. If I'm streaming to nobody or just robots, then I don't know if that's useful. Non-sentient robots. Anyways, so but for the last little bit, I mean, yeah, this is a scene from Neofeud 2, by the way. In case you're wondering what I'm working on, that's one of the scenes from Neofeud 2. I'm working on a really big scene from Neofeud 2. It's gonna there's one that I want to show soon, but it's gonna if I can pull it off, it's gonna be really neat. It's like literally an alien world that has indigenous people being ripped off, other people being brought and enslaved on it, with literal cotton fields, slaves in cotton fields, and there's a military base right there. There's like, with U.S. flags all over it. It's the scene that's like that in Digistar. It deals with like all of this stuff in like one really huge scene. So you've got the military, you've got slavery, racism, chattel slavery, you got indigenous genocide, you got all that stuff like in one scene. But it's taking me a while. So this is another scene that's dealing with, of course, being a robot dude driving your car. Anyways, okay, so now what I want to finish on is some, how does like Cyberpunk relate? Because sometimes I bring up like Neofeud itself is, yes, it's a Cyberpunk work, right? We're talking about old people Cyberpunk today. I don't really care about the old people stuff. It's just like, I'm just an old people. And part of what I want to say is it's okay to be old people. One thing it can be a little bit weird and grating with some Cyberpunk is like, it's hyper focused on youth culture and hipster stuff and what's cool and in stuff. And that's like, that's one thing that I think millennial and Gen Z, certainly millennials, like, don't care to continue the Boomer Gen X generation gap youth worship thing. I mean, I don't think that's a thing that we're really continuing. We're just like, we're old, we're all fucked up. We did like way too much overtime and crunch in the last 20 years, and our bodies and minds are all broken. Like literally, most millennials have been deeply messed up by the amount of overwork that's had to be done. I mean, they literally made on average 8 to 10 times less per hour relative to the cost of living than boomers and Gen Xers, right? Now, worse than boomers, but millennials are like literally have been screwed in so many ways. Gen Z is differently also screwed, but like millennials are now 40 years old, having survived that. And so we're like, I feel like, I mean, maybe I don't speak for every millennial, but we're 40 years old now. We're like grandparents now. Like, we're going to get a dog today. That doesn't make you grandparents, but like our kids are old And like we have, I know millennials that are literally grandparents, and like being an old person is not a bad existential state to be in. It's just that is a natural process. I mean, we're not old, we're not 80 years old, right? But part of it, this is kind of a satirical joke, right? Because that is a part of Cyberpunk, is about young people going fast in the city, cool clothes, cool sexy jeans, cool sexy robot arm. You know, the Cyberpunk 2077 is very young, sexy, hot people in the city. You know, it's very like, you know, and certain branches. It's all about the hottest new fashion. It's all about how many guns and bags of money I'm gonna get with my neon and my Jack and my Trodes, and like the hyper emphasis on that in some subdivisions of Cyberpunk is like, I don't think that's really helpful. Like, I mean, to be real, that's the stuff that I least like about Cyberpunk 2077. You know, this is just it's very shallow. You know, it's like the kids looking at Mr. Cool Trenchcoat and Mr. Neon, you know, shades with the pink and purple Tokyo skyline, right? And it's like, oh, that's so cool and sexy, man. I just want to be in that. It's like, let Cyberpunk be old and like, you know, not necessarily mundane, but let Cyberpunk just give Cyberpunk an Advil. Let Cyberpunk have back pain, like I do. You know what I'm saying? Just, why do we have to like try? Don't be a Cyberpunk tryhard. Be 45 years old. Cyberpunk that has to lean back on the chair in a weird way. You know? Cyberpunk, that's what Carl Carbon is. You know what I'm saying? Carl Carbon is he's an old ass, you know, you know, that's what Carl Carbon. Carl Carbon is Cyberpunk that's not afraid to be an old, uncool person. Carl is like, motherfucker, my goddamn robot arm's falling apart. I'm eating this shitty food. I'm driving this 30-year-old Toyota Hyundai with a duct tape on backrest. I got oil. I got shit I spilled all over this car. I got the bumper is made from red piece of refrigerator that I took off of an old refrigerator. My car sucks. My car is old. My arm is old. My arm sucks. I spilled coffee on my shirt and I cannot afford to stop at a laundromat. I got this shirt, $3 from Walmart. All of my stuff is not cool, man. All of my stuff is really not cool. All of these, right, Big Teal? All these freaking little hipsters, with their Louis Vuitton and their freaking mirror shades and their freaking $200 shoes. I'm over here. I got like a arm made out of rusted melted down cans and pieces of a bike that I melted, and then I like poured that on into an arm mold and I stuck it on, and it looks like shit. It looks like literally a garbage dump because that's all I can afford. I am your college professor. I drove here in a car that I don't own. In fact, I walk to work. And sit the fuck down. Read the old ass books that I told you to read. Stop watching the TikTok Cliff Notes version of the books I told you to read. I'm an old, in pain millennial professor, and you will respect me. God damn it. And, anyways, I'm not saying that's what Big Teal's thinking, but you know, when you get, you know, it's what I'm trying to say is like that's why I actually appreciate the Peripheral, because the Peripheral, like, you know, it's a show that, you know, it's cyberpunk, but it's not old people cyberpunk, but it's, you know, it is written by fucking a 75-year-old person, and it's got a bunch of eldritch millennials in it. The showrunners are like 40 to 60 years old. And, you know, it's not all neon and glitz. It's like the actually interesting parts about it. People that have like real problems, and it's not all about flash and pizzazz. There's a lot of kung fu and action and stuff in it. There's that aspects of it. But I think that's just to make sure people don't completely fall asleep and take a long snooze while they're watching. But it's not all like, the Peripheral is not all surface level cyberpunk. It deals with what are the second and third and fourth level outgrowths? What about families that have to make sure that they pay their medical bills, and what that are grossly out of proportion, and towns and counties and Rust Belt ass Virginia that are run by nasty dudes with cowboy hats. And also it's also like there's southern country people that are also black and not, and it's not like everyone with a southern accent is an idiot, racist, shithead, terrible, Trump supporting troglodyte, which is what liberal, coastal, bougie ass New Yorkers and San Franciscans and Los Angelians, or whatever the fuck they call it, the Los Vangelians. Anyways, it's more grown up than some other cyberpunk. Like Black Mirror was also sometimes like that. Right? It's not a perfect show, but anyways, so that's what I meant when I was saying old people cyberpunk. Sometimes I'm joking, but also I kind of hope that more things like the Peripheral steer the direction of the cyberpunk edge of the English language ship of culture, because I did not finish watching Edge Runners. Okay, I'm like, oh, did a bunch of 12-year-olds think that they were deep when they came up with that sentence? I'm the only one in the world who, it's like listening to Linkin. It's like the first time you listen to Linkin Park. Oh, that was deep lyrics, man. Like, and I'm not to say that that's a bad existential state to be in as a 12, 14, 15-year-old, kid. But I mean, it's like some of the writing for Edge Runners, I'm just like, this is like, what? This is like some 13-year-old Wattpad shit right here. It's childish. I'm sorry. So, and Western culture is childish. So that's some extreme dunking I just did there. Anyway. So anyways, okay, but I'm sorry that I made everybody feel old, or young, but now I'm going to go on to the other topic before we end here. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, I made this thread earlier this week, which is not this one, that's another one. Volcanoes are erupting here in Hawaii, but I'll talk more about Hawaii stuff maybe later today. But I just want to touch on something that came up, which is, so this is the one I want to touch on. So somebody had a tweet earlier this week, right? Speaking of mental prisons and control of the masses of the population, right? Through a variety of means, right? But somebody had this thing earlier this week. I don't know who this person is. I think this is some kind of comedian, celebrity, something. Julia Clara says, "It's insane to me that homeschooling is an accepted practice in this country. Real teachers have to go through years of training and state certification, but an evangelical mom with a BA in marketing who isn't sure about the Holocaust can be like, no, I should be the teacher." And so, like, I'm not, to be clear, I'm not pro evangelical moms with or without a BA in marketing. Holly was like, "You're really generous with that BA in marketing." I'm not saying like that it's great that evangelical moms can deny holocausts to their children or something. But what I want to point out is that I am an Indigenous teacher, both of our kids. I've taught other kids. I've taught multiple STEM education contexts, K to 12, and even kids older than 12th grade. And I've also taught Indigenous, history, both to my own kids and et cetera. I've taught at-risk inner city youth, like impoverished, under-resourced children. I've taught at the American Museum of Natural History, where Ben Stiller gets chased around by an animated Tyrannosaurus skeleton in New York City. I've literally taught there as well. And as an Indigenous teacher, I've seen a lot of the school system. I've been through the school system, the private and the $20,000 a year private school, Ivy League feeder system, and the public school system. I've been through, and I've been in both of those, right? The U.S. school system literally teaches the equivalent of Holocaust denial when it whitewashes its genocidal history and present, right? And that's what I wanted to bring up, which is that, like, the school system of the United States is part of the system of control, right? And that's the people think, oh, the control is when people read Fox News. No, that's not even close, right? Oh, well, you mainstream media generally. No, that's not just CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. It's not even just blue check marks and certain accounts on Twitter. The school system is think of the number of hours you spend in that system, right? Hundreds of thousands, or what is it? Thousands, you're spending thousands of hours at least, right? You're spending 12 years plus of your life in that system. Every day, day in and day out, being bombarded, much of it with literal complete lies that are being, and there's a reason why, right? Critical race theory has been banned, and it's not even that right. Critical race theory is not even close to the truth. That's just slightly less bullshit Western American genocidal history, right? Critical race theory, it's not even talked about anymore because they've successfully banned it everywhere, right? What states have removed it? It's not even on the radar anymore. 1,300 times in less than 4 months. So, anyways, and there's like even maps of this, right? Basically, it's most of the United States. Bill signed into law, verified, right? This is like, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are only 9. So literally 4/5, 80+% of the United States has formally banned the usage of slightly, not even good, not even actual history, slightly less lie-filled, disinformation in your school system, right? That's not CRT is like, even it's like progressively liberally. It's not even like actual honest history of the United States, right? 1619 Project is one of these things that is a New York elite slight revamping of the history of America, its genocide and its slavery and its complicity at all levels of its people, its government, and its business community in that process, right? And almost everywhere it is formally banned, right? It's kind of like, look at the rail workers, right? Democrat and Republican unanimously say, just for basic dignified life, ability to be sick one day is being denied. And that's not even a good example. That's just modern politics. But this is where Americans are built. The school system is where they are the factory, which literally they call it the factory model. It was never about making educated people. It was about training good, Model T wage slaves, little screw inserters into Ford's factories for his cars, and making good little well-trained monkeys that would put the correct amounts of various substances into the metal work, stamping in and stamping out, putting the beans and the tomato sauce into the cans, right? That was what the school system was for. That's what it's always been for. The United States has never, and not just the Western world has never had an education system. It has only had an indoctrination, conditioning, and brainwashing system in it. And that's why they have to ban the teachers have already lost jobs, been threatened, been tracked, gone to prison, gone to jail for just trying to teach. Speaking of freedom of speech, right? Shouldn't teachers have freedom to teach? If you really have freedom of speech, why don't the teachers have the freedom to say and print and share things in classrooms? They don't, because the school is the bread and butter. That is where the core forging of the future human beings that will be the next generation of human beings that will be their country is made. It is education is, that's why the history wars is so important, right? Not just the history wars, it's the English wars, right? The Black Power media. It's not the history wars, it's the English wars, it's the social studies wars, it's the biology wars, it's the geometry wars, it's the current events war. It's all, the school is the battleground of the minds of the population. If control, right? If you're talking about mind prison, right? If we're talking about matrices, right? If we're talking about I closed all my windows. If we're talking about mental control, school is the matrix, right? School is the place where the shackles are inserted in your brain and you think that Thomas Jefferson was a good man, not a 260 slave-owning child rapist, right? The question is not why did dozens of statues of Columbus and Jefferson and other American heroes get taken down during Black Lives Matter. The question was, why did it take till 2020 to have a slight amount of true education in people's brains that they thought to take statues down? The answer is because their entire school system, K to 12 all the way up into college, reinforced by news, reinforced by water cooler conversations, reinforced by books they read in their New York Times bestseller list, or their right-wing reading list, right? Their brains are full of disinformation, full of racist, genocidal, capitalist lies and fascist bullshit, right? And then Black Lives Matter was a tiny little shed of light comes through, and everybody, oh my God, this country needs to be burnt to the ground. Fuck this country. And then they're taking statues down. But then the Matrix reestablished control. Nobody gives a fuck about black people anymore, right? I mean, black and indigenous people who stand outside of the country as a group, generally speaking, and as a Native Hawaiian, we're part of that group, right? If I was to assimilate properly, like the black agent in Resurrections into the Matrix, well, the U.S. wouldn't have a problem with me, and they would stop shadow banning me and taking my streams offline during the Mauna Kea actions, and doing stuff like stopping all of our Native Hawaiians from being heard, right? And and stop poisoning our goddamn fucking water and punishing children for speaking Hawaiian in school, right? The reason why children are punished for speaking Hawaiian in school, right? Why are children punished for speaking Hawaiian? Is because if children speak Hawaiian in school, the education system, the brainwashing, this is what happened this year, by the way. Children are punished for speaking Hawaiian in school because if Hawaiian language, and by extension Hawaiian history and Hawaiian culture, with a non-brainwashing, right, if a non-mental matrix system is installed into the minds of Hawaiian children, those children will grow up to be non-American, they don't have to be told, hey, it's time to burn statues down. They just won't build any of those statues to Americans. And the state of Hawaii, the legal fiction of the state of Hawaii, which it's not even acknowledged by the United Nations, by the way, would fall apart, and the U.S. empire would have 49 states. And Hawaii would be liberated, joining the multipolar world and joining the Silk Road and not being poisoned and not being mass genocided. Like it's at this, if this is a surprise to you, this is because do you have a college degree? Why don't you know any of the things that you're reading on the screen right now? That's what you shouldn't ask. You should not be surprised. The problem with Neo, right? The thing about Neo is the average white person, basically. He's the average Westerner, right? He is surprised and mind blown when he discovers the real world. But for much of the planet, they don't live in a matrix. They live in the world, which is a place that is run by a bunch of white capitalist, Western imperialist warmongers and colonialists who are fighting to destroy their places, right? That's why Zion is all black and brown, right? And if you did not know about this, you should ask your school system, why doesn't your school system teach, right? Where do you live, right? If you're in the U.S. or in Canada or wherever, especially if you're in the U.S., why doesn't the U.S. teach, right, that Hawaii still has children being punished for speaking Hawaiian? Why doesn't the U.S. teach that the Hawaii is not even a real state? Why doesn't the U.S. teach the crimes that it's committing against Hawaiians to this second, including poisoning our water with PFAS? That was like this week, 2 days ago. Wait, forever cancer chemicals. If 1 gallon gets into our aquifer, 1 million people will never drink water again. It will be uninhabitable. If one of the 1,000 gallons of PFAS the U.S. military just spilt all over Oahu next to Pearl Harbor gets in that water, they've already spent hundreds of thousands of gallons of jet fuel. That water all of that aquifer will be undrinkable. The Okinawans just were revealed yesterday. They have 25 times beyond the unacceptable limit of PFAS, forever chemicals, in their bloodstream. So the U.S. is literally slaughtering the Okinawans slowly through chemical warfare. And they're also killing Native Hawaiians by jumping. The U.S. is using chemical warfare They have always been doing this against us. So why doesn't the U.S. teach that in its school system, right? Why don't they teach that? That's the question that you should be asking. And if the United States had freedom of speech and democracy and a people that are fighting against tyranny, they would fight. The people of the United States of America would fight to have an education system. They would not stand for bans of critical race theory, Marxism. They would far from that. They would, if America had an actual population of citizens living equality and under equality and freedom and fighting for rights like they claim to, which the U.S. has never had anybody. They were all cowards. But if the U.S. had that, they would all be fighting to actually teach the truth about the Hawaii that they all love to come stay in a vacation paradise at. If the people of the United States, including their professors, right, doing their land acknowledgements, claimed, right, to fight for indigenous people, black people, freedom, educated, activated, equality, liberty, justice, human rights for all, they would all be fighting to add this to the curriculum, right? But no, that's not what they're doing. They're all like Naomi Klein, taking money from the goddamn military-industrial complex to try to start a proxy war against China and make a lot of money lying, and do everything possible to stop radicalization in its tracks, and then being slowly over time bought off. One college loan, one mortgage, right? One LinkedIn, right? One, in order to pay your medical bills, your exorbitant mortgage, you gotta start slowly, and you before you know it, all of your friends, all of your network, all your social life, your identity is wrapped up in your university identity. Then they ask you to change your curriculum. You gotta chill out on that radical stuff, Okay, get kids in the seats, but we can't be teaching anything too nuts. Also, Lockheed Martin needs kids, so take all your STEM graduates, take your science and tech graduates from your Texas A&M, your Florida University, your New York NYU. We need all your engineering kids to sign up and start building drones for the U.S. military. That's what the university system's for. That's what the public and private and charter K-12 system is for. School is the real matrix, actually, right? And and then everything else about culture, the movies, and the books, and the the off curriculum books, the ones you don't have to read, and the entertainment and the music reinforce what the core matrix teaches, which is complete bullshit about the entire country. Everyone has to go through school. It's mandatory. It's compulsory. Right? Not everybody has to watch, The Matrix or Iron Man or not everybody has to watch, Wednesday Addams, the TV show. But you have to go through school. You have to learn the brainwashing. So when people say, so that's what I was reacting to. Let me go a little bit more through that one though. All the MIT and DARPA money. Anyway, so where the hell was it? Okay, let me keep going a little bit more with this because the U.S. school is also where cultural genocide takes place. I mean, just since the U.S. banned our Hawaiian language, it nearly went extinct. Less than 100 children spoke it in the 80s. Kids are still punished for speaking Hawaiian in today. Our Hawaiian history has been systematically erased. So, I mean, you've already seen that image, but I just want to bring that up. Really quickly, I mean, I know I go through this all the time, but just real quick, just in case people are like, Cyberspook, you're making stuff up. The United States has not lied up. The United States public, private, charter school system and the universities of the United States do not lie about Hawaiian history, and they are not covering anything up. Just in case anybody wants to say that to me. Because they all day long, all I do is put up with assholes telling me that I'm lying up through my teeth about everything. So more in the history of the Hawaii that U.S. schools don't teach. We had the world's highest literacy rate, world's first universal healthcare system, invented submarines before Jules Verne published 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, before the U.S. invaded, banned our language and culture, and ghettoized us. Many Americans think that we lived in huts prior to colonization in Hawaii, but the U.S. actually deindustrialized Hawaii. Before 1898, we already had electricity, mass transit, railroads. Iolani Palace had electric lights before the White House. And, Holly will have links for you with all the receipts for all of this. Those were some of the railroads that we built prior to the United States occupation without their assistance. In fact, their assistance helped destroy our rail system. Hawaii also had a higher literacy rate than the U.S. and Europe before colonization and the banning of our language and culture, erasure of history, and ghettoization. We were often bilingual or trilingual. In 1869, the Hawaiians had the only government in the exposition at Paris, which in the islands that had books of law, newspapers, agricultural products, Bibles, textbooks, as well as other examples of so-called civilized accomplishments that were exhibited. European visitors of the Paris exposition were, for the most part, ruled by monarchs, and only their highborn were privy to excellent education. So again, speaking to the mind prison, the Europeans have never, under the 1800s feudal capitalist colonialism or 1900s social democratic colonialism and capitalism, or 21st century technocratic whatever capitalist so-called democracy, Europeans have never and never will. I hope they do one day, but they have never in their history through this era to this day given actual excellent education. Neither their secular Anglo-Americans or the Europeans even in their own countries. Only the highborn were privy to excellent educations, and faced with these preconceptions about Hawaii, some exclaimed, this island is ahead in literacy and the enlightened countries of Europe are behind it. Now, the other thing that they don't say is Europe did not desire for the masses of their population to have excellent educations because it would prevent the European aristocracy, the feudal leaders that were also the colonial and capitalist beneficiaries, right, from continuing to oppress and send their masses off into wars and to extract the labor value. So the Europeans have never actually desired mass, collective, actually high quality education. They only have varying layers of more advanced diseducation to have the correct proportion of people who can maintain the Boeing 737 wings and engineer the Rolls-Royce cars, but never actually get educated. Nobody ever gets educated in the Western system in their any of their schools. If they did, the West wouldn't be a capitalist, undemocratic, plutocratic, fascist-filled hellscape. Kalakaua, one of our leaders, had invented a subaquatic vehicle when Jules Verne was still dreaming of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Hawaii was a living Wakanda, an indigenous future, more technologically, economically, and socio-politically advanced than any Western nation. So just in case you're like, I don't believe anything that you're saying, that's why I'm going through this thread. I know a lot of you know this thread, but I'm just going through it again just so it's for the record on the stream. The sovereign country of Hawaii had black citizens before the U.S. Civil War. In fact, the U.S. had slaves that stepped onto Hawaiian soil and they were considered free. Chinese were full citizens in Hawaii as the U.S. and Canada chained them up to build railroads in the West Coast with terrible racism and lynching of Asians. That's again a birth certificate of Moses Allen, who was a slave African who was brought into the United States, became a slave, and was free upon entry to Hawaii. And you can see Hawaii was bilingual. So we had Hawaiian, English, and most Hawaiians were beyond bilingual, in fact. So the concept of banning language, like the U.S. did, it's not to say that like people should be able to learn as many languages as they would like to. What is the real freedom of speech is the freedom to speak your own language or the languages that you would like to speak. That is not a freedom that the Europeans, to this day, they actually don't afford Muslims that right. No, if you are not Western Christian country, French, Spanish, British, Germans will allow you to speak that. If you speak a dark language, the Germans punish children and have their terrible consequences. Even in the so-called advanced Western countries, this in 2022, they still punish children for speaking African, Afro-Asiatic languages are banned in Europe in schools. The Europeans don't want to admit this, but they still don't have an education system. They still have genocide in Europe. An example of actual equality, democracy, existing socialism without racial hatred, greater technological advancement. And anyways, it put so we had the U.S., the West, Europe were all put to shame. Their white man's burden was blown out of the water, which is why they illegally crushed Hawaii. So again, you should ask yourself, why does the United States not teach about this in your public, private, and charter schools, K-12? This should be history when you become a freshman in the United States of America. If you cared about freedom and justice for all, the United States would teach my thread. Not just my thread, and the other indigenous and non-white threads that have the truth in them, right? And the things that I'm talking about. Why do you not know this stuff? Why do you not know this stuff if you're a white person watching this? Or why did you not know this until I talked about it? How many vacations have you and your family and your parents' parents been to in Hawaii? Why did you not know any of this? Right? That's the question that's why I like Cyberpunk, because it at least encourages people to look in that direction, into interrogating the systems of control, the matrices that manipulate them in the real world, right? That's what I appreciate about that movie and other things like that. Insofar as they are moving people in that direction from the deeply diseducated preschool level of education that they currently are at the age of 35 or whatever, right? Asians, particularly Chinese, were a threat to white oligarchy because the Hui system, which is Hawaiian, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Maori word, which means working together cooperatively without bosses or landlords. The Hui system, whereby they avoided white banks and businesses. Hui were basically co-ops. Chinese specifically also married into Hawaiian families, hence the names like Akana and Akau, which are Hawaiianized Chinese names. Again, the Chinese were, if you were Chinese, this is an important thing. Well, Silver Spook, the Chinese came in. That means they settler colonized Hawaii, right? No. If the Chinese enter, you can migrate and you can move, and you can do that in a way that is colonial, oppressive, is settler colonial, the way that the Israelis move into Palestine, right? Obviously, the way Europeans moved into North, Central, South America, the way the Dutch and British moved into South Africa, the way that the Dutch moved into Taiwan. They were the first colonizers, in fact. But then you can move and continue to participate and cooperate while being different, right? Well, it's the thing that the U.S. talks about all the time. We're all just different people coexisting. No, you're not. You're white people killing, mass incarcerating, murdering, denying jobs and educations, and putting into environmentally toxic waste dumps. White people hurting everyone else. In fact, so you don't all get together. Otherwise you wouldn't be having these 31 million people trying to burn your country down. Chinese specifically also, Hawaiians didn't ban the Chinese language, and the Chinese didn't ban the Hawaiian language. The white Americans and Europeans banned the Hawaiian language and enslaved the Chinese as coolies on their sugar plantations. That's the difference. Because some people will say, it is inevitable. The Chinese will take over. If America lets go, Chinese will take over Hawaii, and then they'll take over California. The Russians and the Chinese will invade New York City and Texas, and you'll all be speaking Russian and Chinese. Incorrect. Now, if Chinese move to California, or the non-United States indigenous, whatever it is, territories of the area formerly called California, they can move there, and then they can speak Chinese, or they can speak the other languages. But the Americans, Westerners generally assume countries have single enforced monocultural, monolinguistic realities. But that is an assumption because y'all are fucked up. And to assume that everyone else is just as fucked up as you, I don't know how else to describe it, is itself part of your white supremacy. And that is itself part of your own matrix, is the assumption that everywhere outside the matrix is just as bad as your fucked up matrix. So anyway, but I just wanted to make that. So this is the Hawaii that did not need your United States occupation. You already saw those pictures. So anyway, and again, Hawaii's coup, backed by the U.S. gunboat diplomacy to smash non-white countries, building actual anti-racist, socialist, thriving country, was the blueprint the U.S. would later use on countless Asian, Pacific Islander countries. This is what the U.S. is trying to do to China right now. King Xi Jinping has to be overthrown by all the Chinese that hate their government so much, and it's so terrible. Never mind the fact that the government directly responded to the protests in a timely manner. millions and millions of people, including rail workers, black people, indigenous people, against the U.S. occupation of Hawaii, against the poisoning of our water supply. We have been protesting for literally years and decades and centuries. And the U.S. has only gotten worse. They have never gotten better. Whereas the Chinese government is like instantly responding to the people. That's a democracy. You see, China has 1 trillion times more democracy than the U.S. will ever have. The U.S. will die before it ever has democracy. It was built by tyrants like Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, who said black people should be sold to Africa so that we can make some money from them. That was about as close to a good person that clown ever got. And George Washington, I put slaves' teeth in my mouth. And I kill indigenous people. Andrew Jackson is literally inspired Hitler. He's on your $20 bill. He celebrated killing women and children in their sleep and he called indigenous people insects. So the United States will never be a place of democracy. It will be something other than the United States. It will be the Indigenous Federation of Turtle Island under plurinationalism or something, right? And people who used to be white people who have now dismantled whiteness. There will never be any freedom in the so-called, like Burkina Faso and Ghana had other names. And then the people that were native to that land, they said, you know what, we're not gonna allow you to we will not be called what you want us to be called for your convenience. We're gonna be who we are. And the United States, one day, the peoples of the United States will figure out what that looks like. I can't tell everybody what that looks like because I'm not from the United States. I'm from Hawaii. But one day, the matrix of the United States will collapse, and the plurinational Zion that will reestablish itself in the Belt and Road Initiative that it will be incorporated into, as it once was a part of a variety of Silk Roads 1,000 years ago. And then North Turtle Island will discover what it will be, but it will not be the United States. On January 14, 1893, members of the United States business community met in the U.S. collaborator white business community met in a corporate office in Honolulu to plan a coup against the elected government of Liliuokalani. They were not sure how far they wanted to go, but they knew that they had the support of the U.S. in Hawaii. The U.S. did this against Bolivia. The U.S. did this against all of these countries in the world. Europe all participate in this and worse over the last 500 years. So, to push the country back. Anyways, so I could go on this forever, but I just wanted to throw that out there because again, as I said, the question is not like, oh my God, I didn't know about that. The important thing is not, oh wow. The thing should be, why don't you know about that? What you should do, if you claim to be on the side of justice, equality, freedom, and all that, you should demand through all the ways possible that your school system teach this and all the other lies that they are not teaching, right? And if you can't do that, you will self-respect, I can't do that. Well, why? You should ask yourself why you can't do that. Why? Oh, you're afraid of the police. Then what kind of country do you live in if you cannot even, if a prerequisite, as our great comrade Ho Chi Minh, which actually has a base socialist country that has 1,000 times less homelessness, universal health care, $4 insulin, no threat of fascism, and win-win cooperative international non-imperialist trade. It's called Vietnam. As Uncle Ho Chi Minh would say, if you want a socialism, if you want liberty, equality, and justice and human rights, you need to have liberty, equality, freedom, and justice, and social rights, and socialist people. But you can't have that in a people that are completely brainwashed, right? If the school creates the future people, there will never be a United States, right? It's too late, really, in a lot of ways, for 30, 35-year-olds to be watching YouTube videos about leftism and trying to undo their country. It's good, but over the long run, that's not really gonna get what you need. If you really want a country of actual people who understand history, are activated and ready to go, that's why the Black Panthers were dangerous, because getting children, right, in the door, it's not just about school lunches, it's also about what future generation would come out of Black Panther, Black radical left led educational systems, right? That's why Malcolm X was shot, right? Because it threatened the entire systemic structure to have a building and growing, small, subset of the population actually having an education. It would threaten the mass, because if people will get more and more upset, and then as the people discover, oh my God, there's a place I could send my kids to, and we could all get the truth, and we could actually build this future, and not have to spend 20 useless years just arguing about what even is communism, right? And these so-called leftist fucking slap fights in some Twitch Vosh stream. That's a very bad way to build an actual movement. Anyway, so long story short, you have to watch. I mean, why do you have to watch The Matrix and read a Neuromancer and then somehow find your way maybe back to some radical group when you could have 330 million people actually being mass educated in a way that not only teaches them like the history of the United States, but actually how to think and discern what is propaganda from what is not, because nobody knows how to do that. When you get out of university, people are still gobbling up whatever bullshit comes out of MSNBC's mouth. The universities make you actually stupider in the sense of being able and capable of thinking rationally. So if the US had 330 million people coming out of their graduating high school classes that are immune to propaganda and disinformation, that's the end of the United States. That's the end. Not immediately, but I mean, there's a handful of wealthy, rich billionaires. I mean, there are a small number of them. But what keeps them in power is the other 240 million brainwashed conservative and liberal everyone else's. So that's why and they can't win a war against their own. The Civil War is not going to work in a place like the United States in today. People think of that, oh, that's not where they're going to go. They don't shit in their own backyard. All they can do is continue to maintain everybody mass diseducated and not leaning on the cogs of the machines, standing in building the dual non-capitalist cooperative structures, working with the global South and East to build the Silk Road, right? The Chinese and the people of Asia and Africa and the Cubans and the Vietnamese are just waiting for somebody to work with. They don't want to fight a war. Russia and China don't want to fight against Americans. They're like, please stop making these stupid wars. They are waiting for the masses of the United States to finally become, and the West generally, to finally become educated so that they can work with the people in the United States. I mean, Putin has literally said that. One day we look forward to working with the citizens of the United States. The government and the people who run the United States, these people are terrible and they're against Americans' interests. One day we look forward, Vladimir Evil Putin, right? That's why they all hate this guy. He literally said, one day we look forward to working with, Russia looks forward to working with the people of the United States and having good relations so that we can help empower each other. And the Chinese, the Xi Jinping, and the people of China all say the same thing. We look forward to one day working with the people of the United States. But at this moment, we have a mass Western population, Canada, US, New Zealand, Australia, Europe, led by the United States, that are a bunch of Thomas Andersons and digging themselves into a hole of ciphers. And so anyway, so that's what I mean when I say that the school system is the prison is the real Matrix. It's the real cyberpunk mind control, mind prison. And that's why I'm like, if I could start a Silver Spring University, I absolutely would. I don't have the resources to do that. And that's also why I got to be careful when I stream on the Death Star satellites. That's why Black Power Media, I have to be careful. They know that. I have to tell them that. You know, everybody, most people know this. The only people who get their idiot selves banned with really weird decisions, it's usually white dudes. They're like, oh, I'm just going to post whatever I want on my leftist channel or my leftist whatever Twitter. I'm like, no, you post whatever you want. You're going to get your ass fucking beat down if you get big enough. You know, I'm like, that's why I call it the Death Star satellites. That's why this is by the way, this is nothing political. I am just reviewing I'm just reviewing the Neuromancer book. That's all I'm doing. This is just if anybody asks, that's all I'm doing. I'm just talking about you know, I love Neuromancer and I thought Peripheral was a cool show, and that's all we're doing on here. That's all we're doing. I would never, you know, that's all we're doing. So anyways, okay, so it's already 2:06. I gotta go, guys. We gotta go get Puppy. I mean, literally dog, literally a living, breathing flesh dog. Don't ask me why I had to add that adjective. Anyways, so that's what I say about the school system. And then and somebody else was like, let me see if I can find that one. There's some people who were responding like, oh yeah, this was interesting. So speaking of Europe, just real quick. I'm not to throw shade at specifically Europeans, but Europe's leader said we must be He literally said, Joseph Borrell, he's from Spain. He said, like the conquistadors, we must invent a new world. So Europe's leader has recently said we must be conquistadors again. So it appears like the colonizers themselves, they have not even changed one bit. He is the foreign affairs director of the entire European Union. And he is straight up citing conquistadors. So European colonization exterminated 90% of the South American population, perhaps the greatest genocide, and replaced the dead with African slaves. And this guy is citing that as a good thing. And that's what Europe has to do again. Number one, I don't think you can do that. Number two, terrible attitude. Unless you want forever war and you want to destroy yourself in your little, little western tip of Asia. That's not a good plan. Anyways, so and a few other things real quick. So, just on Western education, it can be. So this is from another Hawaiian. Okay, so what I'm not just. This is not like hearsay. I'm not Silver Spook. You're just being hyperbolic. You don't really mean that about the education system. You don't really mean that, right? You're just joking. It's not really the Matrix. No. This is a Native Hawaiian trying to educate our own people, right? In Hawaii. We want you, this being the U.S. university education system, we want you to integrate Hawaiian, Ike means knowledge, right? We want you to integrate Hawaiian knowledge into science, and then them. No, not like that. We meant just like use an occasional Hawaiian word to replace key terms or something. Again, so that's like Matrix Revolutions level of, give them a little bit, not too much, right? Just give them just enough so that they shut up and stop complaining and stop protesting, so that we can look like we're nice. Right? Give the Hawaiians a word. Let them name the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy after Pulvehi. And I love that name. It's nice. It's not enough. That is to buy off all the complicit Native Hawaiians in the education system of the United States. Keep taking that salary. Keep getting your papers in their footnotes. Run on that research hamster treadmill, right? Keep going, buddy, right? Keep moving children into $2 trillion worth of student loans. Keep on pumping them through so that the administrators can take $500,000 salaries, right? And then Wall Street banks and corporate entities can make collateralized student debt obligations and tons of money, repackaging and securitizing all of your student debt. Okay? And here, have a Hawaiian word. Have a little Hawaiian word. That's good enough, right? It'd be like that. The Western education is about faking young change makers and slowly leashing them to student loans, mortgages, property ladders, till they can only do the bidding of empire. And then the only option that they have is continue to do that, because the only jobs that will pay you enough to get out of your student debt hole are imperial jobs. So anyways, like the U.S. military, large banks, corporations, etc. Professional managerial class. You can go join Naomi Klein and Matt Taibbi. Be a so-called leftist journalist. Be a so-called leftist college professor, right? Go join them. These important lessons the U.S. West never will teach, but need to be learned to actually stop the embedded fascism. One thing, 70 years ago, yesterday, hundreds of African. So why this is? If you're European, if you're French, if you are American, if you're any Westerner, why don't you know? Why don't they teach this in your school? 78 years ago, December 1st, 1944, hundreds of African soldiers who helped defeat the Nazis were shot to death by the French army because they were rightfully asked for their salary. The reason why is because the French have never not been fascist, like the Americans, like all Europeans. Why would you murder the soldiers who helped you kill the enemy, the horrible Nazis? Why would you just ask French? If you're French, it's not the British, the Germans, and the Americans, the Canadians didn't do things like this. Ask yourself, why would your country murder the people who helped you fight the Nazis, unless you actually didn't really care about stopping fascism? In fact, you inflamed fascism throughout Europe and put its mask on It was called social democracy. It's called NATO. Why don't you know that history, right? So the reason why is because that does not benefit. In the same reason that the U.S. school system doesn't teach what I just taught you in this thread about the history of Hawaii, it's the same reason why the French history doesn't teach this, because it doesn't benefit the French ruling class, who are a bunch of racist, snobbish dickheads who thumbed their nose at Ho Chi Minh, and they said no. And the French people also, I should add, the white French people said, we don't want to work with the Vietnamese to liberate all people. We want national socialism for white French people. And the Muslims in France can all go to prison and stay in their shithole. That's the French sentiment. And that's why Marine Le Pen got so far. The average European sentiment is Africans, stay out of my white, nice Europe. Asians, Muslims, stay out of my nice white Europe. That includes the Germans. Europe is a Nazi, National Socialist. Europe is a Nazi continent. That's why the French murdered black people who helped them against the Nazis. The French just wanted the French didn't want the Germans to take their nice French stuff. It was an intercolonizer rivalry. That's the only thing. That's the only difference between the French and the Germans in the World War II. The French and the British were afraid that the Nazis that they funded and pushed against communism would come back and take their shit. Because of Anglo-Saxon and Franco and Spaniard hubris. Anyways, but that's the history that you're never going to learn in the West. And you have to learn it from Silver Spook University. I'll be registration for classes is coming soon. I shouldn't overpromise too much, but you know, Silver Spook until I get a formal Silver Spook University going with Big Teal helping me teach it, etc., is going to be when you become a Patreon member, you get the free education, all these streams, plus you also get and then you can voluntarily help pay for it at this moment by becoming a Silver Spook Patreon member or directly supporting us through Ko-Fi, if you appreciate that. But I don't have the resources currently to start formally, but I've been thinking about it. So anyways, okay, but I didn't want to bring that up because this is all basic stuff that people should know. That the people are like, oh, what? I had no idea. Where was that? Somebody quoted, yeah. I'm not saying this just to make Europeans feel bad and just be I hate Europeans. No, this is somebody who is Sven Thay. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but this is a European, and it says, I'm ashamed of this. Unfortunately, this is how these people see the world. It's also another stunt of the fine gentleman took place recently. You know the speech where Mr. Borrell called Europe is the garden, and the rest of the world, Africa, Asia, that's the jungle. And Europe must not allow the jungle. Europe cannot just put up a wall. Europe has to go into the jungle and clear out the jungle. That's this dude. He is the head of the European Union interaction with the rest of the. So he's not the head of the EU, but he is the head of Europe. He represents Europe interacting with the rest of the world. So that's interesting what you got going on there. It's very fascist, which is basically colonialism. But when white people get hit with some of the colonial treatment against other white people, that's what fascism is. So indigenous teacher here. Anyway, so the last thing is there's a bunch of interesting replies and stuff. Oh yeah, if you're a proud American, you're a Holocaust denier. I just want to bring that up as well. Somebody history teacher somebody was a history teacher. I have a history degree. Wait, Silver Spook guy, history degree. Somebody brought up, yeah. Somebody had a history degree, and he's like, I had never learned any of this stuff, and I forget what it was interesting because, yeah, here. This is the one regarding speaking of school, right? This guy replied to my tweet. He said, I didn't know of the Tulsa riots or Juneteenth, even in college, and I was a history major. So even getting a degree in history itself, right? And I think it's just an American. Getting a degree in history, didn't even hear about the Tulsa riots, right? I mean, and that's not all of what you need to know. That's just the beginning of what you need to know. And getting an entire degree in it, you don't even learn that. And I can confirm, getting a degree in history, you can actually get more disinformed because you think you know everything about history when you get a degree in history. But the history that the United States, which is upper class white men curated, by the way, for their interests, even though all of the teachers of history and the teachers of American education are so oftentimes non-white and oftentimes not male, but the people who set the tone, especially history, are upper class white men, and they're affiliated with the United States empire at the highest levels. So the history, when you get a history degree, you have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. See, the thing about public education is like, it's terrible. It's brainwashing, and it creates stormtroopers. It creates all the brainwashed capitalist, white supremacist, or whiteness supporting imperialist people that makes the imperialist United States. And then knowing or unknowingly. But you don't pay for public education. When you go to university, you are personally investing hundreds of thousands of dollars of your money into your education, and so now you are doubling and tripling down. You have deep vested interest in believing yourself to be right, even more so, despite the fact that you could actually become more incorrect, more imperialist, more bought into that system. Is it any wonder all of the blue checkmark think tanky freaking biggest imperialists are liberals working in DC and Wall Street and from big major universities, Oxbridge, NYU, Harvard, Princeton, Yale. These are all the people that come out thinking they're all geniuses in their topics, but all they are is they have personally invested their own money and their own time and their own social networks, their own life and time. And the worst is the life hours, thousands and hours, years of your life, staying up all night, researching, writing books, going to conferences, shaking hands, brown nosing at all of these university conventions, talking to other professors. Your life is full of all of these imperial brainwashing, also known as educational facility connections. And now your life, you cannot turn with all that investment on the empire that you have taken your money and your time and energy and your friends' network and invested into. You are bound to that brainwashing. And now you are working for the New York Times, Washington Post, you're Naomi Klein, working for the UBC, you're working for Lockheed Martin, the Pentagon, you're writing white papers, you're writing dissertations, you're writing New York Times bestsellers. You're writing Russia is going to blow up the U.S. any second now. You're tweeting about the 10,000, 15,000 executed Iranian protesters, because everything that you don't want to think that you wasted your entire life and all your money on your college education. So it gets worse when you go to college. When public school, it's all free. You're like, fuck, I slept through all that. If you slept through all your public school classes, you might actually be smarter than the average American. And I know there are professors that support us directly, but I mean, we have only the best rogue educators who understand this, that are trying their best to be all. Big Teal is like, it's like the Morpheus for all of the poor, bougie ass, what do you call, Louis Vuitton wearing undergrads, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people like go into the university. Well, I mean, if you're not white, you're gonna have real education whether you like it or not. Coming from your life experiences. But a lot of people are gonna go into those universities, right? And they're gonna come out more deeply invested because of a lot of factors, but your positionality in the white supremacist capitalist places like the United States is going to determine a lot of that. My dad isn't white technically, but he is one of those bought in people, right? And he will argue, he is never going to be able to hear. I tried to tell him the things I tell you on this stream. He cannot hear that. He is so deeply bought into it, right? So but anyways, I'm not trying to throw shade at all of our professors here, because I have been a teacher in the United States myself. So I'm speaking from experience. This is what they want you to teach. I know what they want you to teach. I've had to teach shit like this. I just try not to teach the bullshit. Academia is real Squid Games. So anyways, this is the time to leave, but I just want to read the burnout is really serious on point about that. People invest in and get advanced degrees in the U.S. All the people that invest in to get advanced degrees. Yeah. If you've been in it, there was a thread about academia, about how it gets you slowly to buy in over time, right? And then in the beginning, but then eventually you wake up 8-10 years later, and you are they put the bars up one bar at a time. They don't just drop the prison on you, because then you'd be clawing at the walls. They slowly, right? The student debt, you don't even know you're getting into when you're an idiot 18-year-old. It's one of the first bars. We don't even realize I'm going to come back for you later, right? It's like a 35-year-old creep white dude grooming a 17-year-old girl, right? And I'm not saying the university system is sexual harassment, but the empire in academia is slowly maneuvering you into positions that you cannot get out of, and not just academia, corporations, your professional life, everything, slowly moving you into a position where all you can do is stormtroop now, because to do anything else would jeopardize your life, your family, your network, right? That again, that's part of the systems of control that they've evolved over the centuries. But yeah, anyway, so academics, real Squid Games. So, but yeah, anyways, you should all take Big Teal's class, unless Big Teal's like, no, I have too many kids already. I got too many kids. That's one of the few, Big Teal and Dr. Chris Pye is one of our friends here. He's another one of the people who helped get a bunch of these conventions going. Dr. Chris, not Crispy. Wait, I can't spell anymore. I'm just thinking of some of our supporters. Oh wait, I'm spelling it wrong. God damn it, no. I can't spell my friends' names anymore. Okay. Yeah, because Dr. Kavika Guillermo or Dr. Chris Patterson helped to set up a lot of these events, and I know he teaches as best as he can anti-imperialist stuff inside of his own classrooms. We've been on several events with him. He's has family from Hawaii also. He's Asian and Pacific Islander, at least people who are from Asia and the Pacific. It's like, and so people try their best, but still, it's difficult. I know it's difficult to trying to teach true stuff, like where it matters, and deal with the just trying to survive as a professor. I know they're not paying very much nowadays, so that also sucks. Unless you're getting tenure, but I hear tenure is harder to come by. So anyway, so yeah. No more than 30 at max. I have his book. I can't wait to read it. Oh yeah, Open World Empire. Yeah, I've recommended that one several times. Yeah, Open World Empire. Yeah, so I will stand that book. So so when the Silver University is be like, if you can't take my class, so there's a few other people that you might want to think about. But there's a lot of other people that I don't know, man. I don't know. If you go to UBC, don't take the Naomi Klein class. Okay, it's actually at the. It's actually she's actually at the same university. So even within the same university, you can have imperialist propaganda, and then you can have people that are trying to not do that. But the struggle is real, and this is the end of the stream because I gotta go. So in conclusion, I hope that Neuromancer movie doesn't suck, but I'm not super invested. It's okay for old people to be cyberpunk, Old Cyberpunk is also good. I wish that, I'm slightly more curmudgeonly. I hope that Cyberpunk is less just about neon pink and purple Tokyo skylines and a cool robot arm and a gunfight with, cool anime bays bouncing off the wall. I mean, that's fine, but I want to have more interesting and educational, grown up themes and discussions and development and storylines in the Cyberpunk. So that's why I like the Peripheral, and I hope Neuromancer movie. Oh, sorry, it's not even a movie. It's a Neuromancer show coming to Apple TV. So I hope that it continues that legacy, and if it doesn't, well, I don't. Whatever. Neofeud is a game that supports everything that we do here. It is a game that is on Steam and on itch.io, as I already said. So consider checking it out and grabbing it if you would like to. Another way, if you like Cyberpunk and/or adventure games, this is a game that might be up your alley. And so it's like Stray without a cat protagonist. It's like Katana Zero, but it's not. Well, I don't know if it's like Katana Zero. It's like Disco Elysium, but with more cyberpunk characteristics. Neofeud is also, as I said, on Steam over here, and you can get it on sale there if you want to get Neofeud. Also, Indigestar is a game while I work on Neofeud 2. It is a game set in the world of Neofeud 2, but it's more of a science fictional. It's more of a science fictional 2001: A Space Odyssey, Star Warsy sort of game, but it's not a war game. It is a game from an indigenous perspective, however, if you're interested in that. Also consider checking out Decolonators if you want straight up hardcore decolonization. You're like, the Decolonators is a game where you kick capitalist colonizers' butts out of Vietnam in retro arcade game glory. Speaking of actual countries outside the Matrix, this is one of them, right? This is the actual Zion is Vietnam. They're gonna blow your ass away. They don't put up with no capitalist machines down there. They blow your ass away. Pigeon with Gun is another retro action comedy game that is a game where you play a pigeon with a gun fighting giant robot gajillionaires and F-16 gentrifying bougie pilots and heart-stealing liberal Valentine card-shaped politicians and fun stuff like that. So that's Pigeon with Gun. Also, you can find Woman, which is a book by my partner, Holly, that is from a perspective of a woman raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. And it is not a retelling of the Bible, but it is a kind of book through the eyes of Mary, and it is a dunking on right-wing conservative Christian Jordan B. Peterson sort of culture. And it's free, or you can name your own price when you pick it up and support us with some money. Also, if you really like books, like Silver Spook, I don't care about games. I don't care about movies. I don't care about anything. I only read books. Books are the only thing that matter in the world. I only like looking at pieces of dead tree bark. Or sometimes, if I'm feeling frisky, a PDF or a .epub. There's a Neofeud short story collection that is in ebook format if you would like to get that. And I don't know if we can get it in paper. And then you can also get the Neofeud. You can't get the card game, but I might put that out one day. And there's also the Terminus Machina short story collection, which is another books series that I made. That is the stories from the world of my Deus Ex Total Conversion that predates Neofeud. Technically, the Terminus universe and the Neofeud universe are the same Silververse. So there's no characters that from Neofeud that occur in this, but it's kind of I'm slowly trying to merge all of the Neofeud and Terminus worlds together. So we'll see how that goes. You can also help us out patreon.com/Neofeud. At patreon.com/Neofeud, you can become a supporter and help us with ongoing support with the games and education. And as I said, Silver Spook University is all of the streams and all of the social media posts that I make as of now. And if you would like to, you're getting it for free, but if you would like to pay for that, help support it to continue to happen, you can become a Patreon member, give a direct donation through Ko-Fi, and also you can get access to the Silver Spook Discord and behind the scenes work on what we're doing. You can also follow at Silver Spook Games. As I said, I have been on Mastodon forever. I was on Mastodon before it was cool. I like Cyberpunk before the Matrix came out. I'm really cool and ahead of the curve. I'm a real hipster when it comes to social media. I have been on Mastodon for like 6 years now. And if you follow my streams, every time I finish a stream, I always say at the end, you can follow me at Silver Spook Games at octodon.social or at Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social. There is a big influx of people coming in, so don't skip the Silver Spook account when you join the Mastodon. Also, you can follow at Silver Spook Guy on Twitter, at Silver Spook Games minus the E and Silver for the game stuff. Facebook Silver Spook Games and Instagram Silver Spook. And finally, you can also a couple more things. Terminus Cyberstar. That the sequel to Terminus Machina, Terminus Cyberstar, is coming soon. It is a cyberpunk RPG immersive sim. I'm the content director and lead writer of that game. It's a game that's a lot like it has similarities to Cyberpunk 2077. I'm trying to make the story more. I'm trying my best to make a story more based and adult as the lead writer for it. Whether I succeed, that is up to you to decide. But it is a game that is a 3D cyberpunk RPG. And it is the sequel to my 2013-2012 Deus Ex game, Terminus Machina. So if you like that, you can follow that. Join the Discord at the Discord link there. And finally, but of course not leastly, you can follow Not what was it? I always forget. Yeah, you can follow. Wait, what? No. Don't follow Hollywood, whatever that person's name is. You can follow at the Tech Fairy, mod, voice actor, and partner here at Silver Spoon Guy, and producer and writer for Zion Attack, The Lounge, which is a limited digital cabaret that Holly moderates and produces for, and it has crossovers with the Pigeon with Gun and other things we do here. Writer, educator, and primary caregiver, and also writing books like that one, and tweeting important things about Hawaii like that. And soon to be dog haver along with myself. And thanks a lot, A. Leon and Big Teal. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Holly. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you again, Patreon patrons. And we'll be back later on in the evening for some more something on Twitch. I can't say exactly what it is. Possibly we'll have dog barking. We'll see. All right. Have a good. Keep your mirror stage polished. Be excellent to each other. Free your mind. Free your education, which is what goes in your mind. Actually, more important than your physical mind, possibly. And yeah, we'll see you later on.